Championship Wrestling, bringing you great wrestling action, sanctioned by the NWA, National Wrestling Alliance.
We have a show, a short show, but a newsworthy show, and a weird show. NWA World Championship Wrestling, September 3rd, 1988. We open with clips of a tag team match, where based on the commentary, it appears Dusty Rhodes has stepped in to be the tag team partner of Brad Armstrong, as he faces Al Perez and Kevin Sullivan.
Dusty Rhodes and Brad Armstrong?
Yes.
Like, what?
Well, Brad could use a tag team partner.
And so the guy they came up with is Dusty Rhodes?
Dusty Rhodes brings the charisma that Brad Armstrong does not have.
Well, you know, he does bring that.
And Brad brings the abs that Dusty does not have.
That's also true.
I mean, frankly, there's worse teams I've seen.
Well, like one guy is hideously boring, the other guy doesn't do anything. This does not sound like an impressive tag team.
That's the most glass half empty thing I've ever heard.
Well,
anyway,
usually I'm the other way around.
I guess that's true. So they run down the card the announcers do for what we're going to see in the show. They promised a huge match by the standards of Saturday afternoon TV. Jimmy Garvin challenging Mike Rotunda for the TV title.
Holy smokes. That's a main event on any television show in the land.
As well as many special interviews.
Yes.
And based on how that TV title match turned out, it's a good thing they had many special interviews.
Yeah, they kind of teased that Flair and Luger were going to be there, but they weren't. They did special interviews from elsewhere. So, for some reason the show was only an hour. For those following this story, this breaking news in 2019, as of September 1988, the company still had not been sold. They're still negotiating with Turner to sell the company. Turner was just about to start a new channel, TNT.
What a terrible idea.
Yeah, just kicking that off, 1988.
Never last.
Man, oh man. So there you go. That's the story.
The Fantastics versus Keith Steinborn and George South.
So, Ross puts over George South like $1 million.
He did.
He says, I can't remember the exact term he used, but he's basically saying, you know, this guy doesn't have the best win-loss record, but he is a great athlete.
What he said was, George South, he does not have the best win-loss record, but he's a great athlete. He may be just a win or two away from the main event.
He was wrong.
Maybe he meant the main event of Saturday afternoon television.
George South was not a win or two away from the main event.
And many wins away.
So Steinborn, I don't know if you guys know much about wrestling, if you're listening to this right now, but like someone takes your arm and does an arm wringer, you'll often see the guy, the video people can see this, the audio people are just going to have to use their imagination.
It's very
someone will have your
hard
arm,
to describe, yeah.
And the guy who has his arm taken slaps his shoulder.
Yes.
Okay. Fucking Keith Steinborn was in an arm hold. It's only for about, 10 seconds. He slapped his shoulder 15 times.
We rewound and counted?
Yes. Once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it.
It's like one arm drag and one arm ringer, and he gets up and there's a tag.
Yes.
And
15 times in the middle of this, he slapped his shoulder.
Over and over again. That's a slap the cord.
Slap the shoulder.
Yeah.
So he should do the other shoulder. You
That's
idiot.
true. The cord's over here.
He slaps his shoulder.
You're much smarter than
15
I am.
times. Yes. 15 times. I'm counting. I'm like, it's 15 fucking times, dude.
We get it. He's working your shoulder.
So then he does one other move, and he gets taken down another arm drag, and now he's on his back on the ground. He keeps doing it. But this time he goes, arm, top of the head. Arm, top of the head. I'm like, why are you slapping the top of your fucking head? What are you doing?
He got arm dragged onto his head.
So I don't know what happened in this match. Like, the only thing that I could pay attention to was Keith Steinborn fucking slapping himself all over. Slapping the porpoise.
Well, what you missed was George South and his amazing mullet. Now, we see a lot of mullets in these 1980s TV shows, but very, very rarely will we see a mullet this unconditioned, this bone dry, this super, super poofy, just going everywhere. The longer he wrestled, the bigger it got. So the Fantastics did not have mullets. They did not tap their shoulders. They won with a rocket launcher.
Cool, dude.
Dusty Rhodes comes out for a promo.
Dusty Rhodes comes out, and David Crockett says, if the Republicans and the Democrats were smart, they'd run this man for president. I guess both parties are going to Run Dusty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, they say this, and I heard it, and I initially thought, this is fucking ridiculous. But then I realized, fuck, this ain't ridiculous at all.
Stranger things have happened.
Stranger fucking things have happened.
So,
Such as what happened at the end of this promo.
Dusty Rhodes.
actually.
Dusty is out here to plug a dog collar match with Kevin Sullivan. But he gets about 2 sentences in and it says, I want to address something else. Come with me for a walk, he says. He drags David Crockett out from behind the podium over to where they can see the audience. Now, we do not see the fan they put on that he was addressing, but he begins to address a very specific fan. He says, every week I'm out here, and there's some fans going crazy for me, and there's always some fans that don't like me too much, but there's one fan, this fat lady sitting against the wall. And every week she says the same thing. She says, Dusty Rhodes, and he's imitating her, but I can't do it, but Dusty Rhodes, you ain't nothing but a whale. And everyone kind of gasps as Dusty's called this woman out. And I assume she's there every week calling him a whale, nothing but a whale. So Dusty's retort to this woman is, honey, I have turned down uglier women than you.
What?
I don't know if this is an insult.
I
don't know if he's making fun of himself.
That's a retort. I've turned down uglier women than you.
Yes.
I've turned down
I don't know if he's making a joke of the whole thing.
uglier women than you. I think he meant I've turned down better looking women than you.
That's not what he said.
That's not what he said.
He said I've turned down uglier women than you. He then accused her of trying to break his train of thought. Said she could not do it.
She did.
After he derailed his own promo
Yeah.
to stop plugging the dog collar match and talk about her for the entire time. And then to close, he goes back to the dog collar match and says, Sullivan, you should get this fat woman and come take care of your business. Lady, if you are still listening to this 30 years later, I want you to know you did in fact steal Dusty Rhodes' train of thought.
You did.
It's abundantly clear.
Yeah, he got.
I don't know if he ever stopped thinking about this fat woman.
He was gotten to.
He was so gotten to.
Dusty Rhodes was gotten to by a fat woman in the crowd calling him a whale. Can you imagine?
That's what happened.
Dude, I'd be so embarrassed.
It's a good thing for her.
I'd have walked backstage and just hung my head.
It's a good thing for her he's not
Been
Bully
like,
Ray.
Can you edit that off the show? I can't let that live into infamy.
Sting is a professional athlete. A TV star. That's his job. He comes out for this promo. No face paint this week. He's just doing a promo, so that's fine. He's got sunglasses on. Got the hair all bleached. He's wearing a Daiquiri Hut t-shirt that appears to be at least 15 years old. He is wearing very short neon green swim trunks.
I am 99% sure I had this exact pair of swim trunks when I was in junior high.
I suspect they were at Kmart's all over the country.
Probably the same size.
Yeah.
I might add.
Yes. They were very short on him, probably just right on you. He said something about his shoes, how Crockett was going to make fun of his shoes, but he liked his shoes. I couldn't tell what they were. Probably ruse in the 80s.
He then buried the fat woman in the crowd.
He said that Barry Windham has been frustrated his entire career. He's been frustrated by living in his father's shadow. He was in Dusty Rhodes' shadow. He was in Ric Flair's shadow. So he's very frustrated, almost as frustrated as that fat lady in the crowd.
Wow.
It's a good thing they never put her on camera. That would have been just mean. She says, he and Barry will be going on tour all over the country, and he sings, Don't Worry, Be Happy.
My fuck, is that song that old?
Yes.
Jesus Christ. I am an old fucker.
I bet Sting had a great time being Sting.
Sure he did.
I bet it was very, very fun being Sting in the 1980s.
I guess it was 88, not 86. It's not quite as far back, but...
Yeah, only 31 years.
Yeah.
The Midnight Express versus Gary Royal and Mike Jackson.
Some very high-end jobbers here on the show here today.
So the story of this is we have seen 200 Midnight Express matches over the past 3 or 4 years, and they tend to give the jobbers a lot, especially Mike Jackson, who they're clearly huge fans of his. This is a different week. They come out, they are pissed, they high-five each other, and they go on the attack. And they are brawling in the ring. They're brawling out of the ring. They're not giving these guys a chance to breathe. They're on them like dogs the whole time.
Well, Cornette had promised in the promo that they were going to show us what would happen the next time they were in the ring with Arn and Tully.
I see.
So he said, we're going to show you right now what's going to happen the next time we're in the ring with Arn and Tully in a championship match.
Oh, well.
They proceed to get disqualified.
Cornette hits the ring and hits a guy with a tennis racket for the DQ right in front of the ref.
So the winners of this match were, in fact, Gary Royal and Mike Jackson.
The Royal Jackson Express have a win over the Midnight Express.
I believe they should get a U.S. title shot off of this.
Hey, maybe they will.
They should.
It's possible.
They should.
So then they do a promo. This is so funny. Stan Lane, when he first showed up, he was doing his own talking. Like a week or two later, he was just a mute guy who would let Cornette do all the talking for him, which works because it's Cornette. He comes out here, and if you haven't figured it out, they're the baby faces in this feud. And Lane is all fired up. He's just had this match. They've just beaten the hell out of both guys. They beat the hell out of the ref afterwards. And the fans are going crazy. And they go to the podium, and Stan grabs a U.S. Tag Team title belt, and he holds it high in the air and just goes, yeah! And everyone cheers. And he puts the belt down, and he crosses his arms, and he slumps forward. He takes a nap as Cornette goes to work. So Cornette's doing this promo. He says the Four Horsemen tried to bully them, tried to intimidate them. They don't intimidate. We've been doing that same thing for years. We are the ones who sent Bobby Fulton to the hospital with a concussion. We are the ones who burned the flesh off Ronnie Garvin's face with a fireball. And in fact, when you won the World Tag Team titles, it's because we were the ones who sent Robert Gibson to the hospital. So we've been doing this for a long time. And when we jump somebody, they stay jumped. And Cornette runs his mouth for a while. And it occurred to me here, part of Cornette's shtick is that he has, as Arn Anderson will later point out, mismatched suits. He has a million suits and a million primary colors, and he always grabs the jacket off one suit and the pants off another and his other tie, and looks like a clown, frankly. He's out here this week in a suit, and it's a very loud suit. Don't get me wrong. It is black, it is scarlet, and it is gold, but it is coordinated. The jacket matched the shoes. The tie matched the pants. So he is out, now that he's out here trying to get cheered, he's not being such a complete clown. He's being a character.
Being a mild clown.
But he's being, he's not being so completely disrespectable as he used to be.
He says the fans, sometimes they cheer, sometimes they boo, they don't know what they want, but we know what we want, the titles. He then vowed to piss on Tully and Arn.
Did he?
Yeah. He said that they were going to be like the dogs and the fire hydrant.
He did say that.
And they were going to do what the dogs do to the fire hydrant.
He did say that.
Which is, in fact, piss on them.
That's true.
So he said that they were going to piss on Tully and Arn. And then he says, if we piss on them...
Yes.
If we piss on them, Vinny, it'll be the first time in their lives that they smell like men.
I did catch that part. Okay.
Wait a second.
I hadn't put those two together.
I do not smell like urine right now.
Happy to hear.
And I feel that I don't have any idea what Cornette's talking
about. And of the two of us, you've been changing more diapers lately. So if one of us smelled like urine, it would be you.
Diapers? You're not in diapers anymore.
She used to be. Well, you've changed them more recently than I have.
That's definitely true.
Yeah.
That is definitely true.
So, yes.
By the way, does anybody want 3 cats? I've been desperately trying to get rid of these cats. So, they have 2 litter boxes. And they're litter boxes. Dealing with cats.
I follow you, yes. Okay.
So we decided we're going to try this new thing. We're going to get the igloo.
I got one, yeah.
Okay. So you know what it is. It's an igloo.
Yeah.
You put litter in it.
Right.
The cat goes inside, uses it, and then comes out.
That's the plan.
Okay. Fucking cat walks in there, and the idea is they turn around so they can see outside.
Yeah.
Not my cats. Fucking cat walks in, head first, doesn't turn around, and pisses straight out the door all over the floor. Day 1.
That's an issue. That's a severe issue.
Fuck. I can't win.
That's not how it's supposed to work.
No. What can I do here?
Is your cat brain damaged? Does it have
No,
breathing issues?
It's just a cat, an annoying cat.
I have cats at an igloo. That's never happened. What my cats do is the one will go into the igloo, and then the other one, who likes to harass the first one, knows that this first cat is now trapped. And so he goes to the front of the igloo and goes in, and they have a fight in the igloo. And I have to go break it up.
I would be fucking fine with that.
But the piss does stay in the igloo.
Yes,
All of it.
exactly.
Without fail. No, Brian, I don't want 3 cats.
I'll just take one.
If I ever have a big house, we'll see if I can do that.
All right.
So it's time for... Oh, actually, before the main event, they go to commercial, and there's a little calendar up on the screen. And the calendar, Wednesday, what would that be? The 8th, I think it was, whatever it was. I guess it's right here. Wednesday the 7th is highlighted. And it says, Wednesday, September 7th is Clash of the Champions Fall Brawl. I thought, oh, that's coming up fast here. And I checked the date of this show. Well, it's the 3rd. This is the go-home show for Clash of the Champions Fall Brawl.
One match.
Beyond that, I had no idea the show existed until right here.
Okay. Well, Vinny, now you know it exists.
Yeah.
Can you name one match on Fall Brawl?
Now, as we're sitting here?
Yes.
Yes, because I have the card right in front of me.
But before that.
No. Are you kidding me? No.
Okay. Because I have no idea what's on the show.
If I didn't know the show existed, Brian, how could I know what matches were on it?
I don't know.
So, the further breaking developments on this story to come. But yes, this is the go-home show for Fall Brawl. Mike Rotunda versus Jimmy Garvin for the TV title. As Jimmy Garvin comes out, he's got Precious with him. And, of course, Sullivan tries to grab her. So Garvin and Sullivan start brawling. Then Rotunda and Garvin start brawling. And Rotunda takes Garvin down to the floor. Sullivan throws Precious down to the floor. And in the melee, they are dragged over like by the side of the podium where they do the interviews. And Sullivan picks up a cinder block. And he slams the cinder block down on Jimmy Garvin's leg. And Jimmy Garvin screams. And Sullivan's got another block, and he throws that one down too, and Garvin screams more. A bunch of heroes make the save. Usually we say geeks hit the ring. Heroes make the save. Dusty Rhodes is out there. Sting is out there. Dr. Death is out there. The Fantastics are out there. Big names. They chase Sullivan and Rotunda away. Garvin is down on the ground screaming his leg is broke. They're rushing a stretcher out there to attend to him. This is a serious deal.
So Garvin needed knee surgery, and so that's why they shot this angle here. He's out of action for a while. Has a very serious angle. He broke a alleged cinder block over his leg. Mm-hmm. It was newsworthy. You don't get a lot of newsworthy angles here on the show.
No, the show is usually squashes and promos. In fact, when there is an angle, it's usually a clip of something that happened somewhere else. As far as things actually happening in the studio, is the biggest thing in a long, long time.
So I've got the Fall Brawl Clash of the Champions 3 card.
Don't share it yet.
I won't, but I will say that looking at this card, there are 2 matches that I understand why they're happening, because there were interviews and or angles here on the show.
Yes.
But that's it. The other 3 matches on the show, I am gobsmacked as to why they are taking place.
The second one in particular appears to be like a mistake. It's like somebody didn't show up and they threw something out there.
This is very bizarre.
But we will get to that. So they go to break. When they come back, Rotunda's back in the ring. He demands a number 1 contender.
The number 1 contender.
The number 1 contender. And we can hear Kevin Sullivan screaming, they are not going to cheat anybody out of a match. We were promised a world television title match, and Kevin Sullivan's going to deliver it. And so he brings out Bob Emery.
Bob Emery.
The number 1 contender.
Aghast that they consider him the number 1 contender.
Yes.
Because he's not.
So they throw Emery in the ring. Rotunda destroys him. The camera's focused on Sullivan screaming and ranting on the floor like a lunatic. Rotunda wins. I did not see how. I assume the butterfly suplex, but I don't know.
Who cares?
And as soon as the ref counts 3, Dr. Death hits the ring, sends him packing.
Where was this fucking guy 5 minutes ago?
Well, he was out there.
He is the number 1 contender.
Oh, that. Well, yes.
Yes.
Well, he's tending to Garvin.
This dude needs to pay attention.
He was at Garvin's side.
He could have won the title here.
He could have. There's his opportunity missed. We get our first commercial for the Clash of the Champions. And I'm sitting here bated breath, waiting. What matches are they going to announce? They've been building this Flair-Luger rematch. Is this happening right now? So there's like random clips going on. And the narrator, the voiceover guy, tells us that Dusty Rhodes and Dick Murdoch are looking to settle the score against Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah.
So it's a handicap match?
Do you want to know what happened?
I have it here if you want to. Sullivan's wrestling twice?
So it was supposed to be Dusty Rhodes and Dick Murdoch versus Al Perez and Ron Garvin.
Okay.
Garvin quit.
I see.
Okay, so the match they end up doing is Dusty Rhodes versus Kevin Sullivan. And do you want to know the finish?
Dusty wins clean.
Dusty pins Gary Hart.
Oh. Well, that is new.
Who is not in the match.
He's not Kevin Sullivan.
No. WCW, everybody.
In 7 minutes, I see.
Yes.
So they plug that match. They plug Barry Windham versus Sting for the U.S. title.
Okay.
Valid.
Fine.
That's a perfectly valid Clash of the Champions main event. That's great. Then the commercial's ending. Like, that's it? We have a Texas Outlaws Kevin Sullivan handicap match and Barry versus Sting. That's the only match you're plugging. And then they do the effect where, like, Jim Cornette breaks through the green screen. I'm thinking, okay, Cornette's going to plug a tag match. And what Jim Cornette says is like, wait a minute, you can't end this commercial. You haven't said one word about the Midnight Express. And then it ends.
You'll never guess who's not.
They did not say any more words about the Midnight Express. And apparently that's because the Midnight Express are not on the show.
They are not on the show.
So I think at this point, Brian, now is a good time.
Sold immediately.
Well, that too. But now is a good time to go over what was on Clash of the Champions Fall Brawl 1988. Right?
Actually, wait.
You want to wait more? We can wait more.
Wait.
All right.
I'll point to this.
All right. This is a terrible commercial. That is my point.
Yes.
We knew no matches going in. We know one coming out.
Yes.
That's terrible. And again, this is the go-home show. The announcers are reconvening. David Crockett is just beside himself, on the verge of tears. Jimmy's in bad shape, he says. They replay the whole angle. I love it's a slow motion replay. And in case you couldn't figure out it was a slow motion replay, there's a graphic in the corner reading slow motion replay.
Yes.
So the point that here was, as soon as this brawl started, the Varsity Club was clearly leading Jimmy Garvin to the place where they had stashed these cinder blocks. They had a plan coming in to ambush this man and break his leg. They did.
Disgusting.
So we get a Flair promo. So Ric Flair's in a locker room somewhere. And he doesn't really have a point. He talks about being Ric Flair, flying first class, good-looking women bring him a cup of coffee, ask him why he's in constant demand. Because he's the world champion, he says. And a lot of people don't like that, but they got to learn to live with it. And he compares himself to other athletes, particularly in Atlanta in the 80s. Dale Murphy, he says, you're a big deal, but you're not the champion. Then he says, this is a quote from Ric Flair on TV in 1988. There's not Vincent Verhei's words. These are Ric Flair's words. Herschel Walker, for all you black folks out there, he's a real big dude, but he's not the champ. I'm not sure why he felt the need to qualify. Herschel Walker was, in fact, a big dude for all people.
Yes.
In 1988. And he was not the champ, though. That is true. This is all true. So he calls out every babyface in the roster, Dusty, Lex, Dr. Death, Sting. And it ends. This was an evergreen Ric Flair promo. And at first, for a few seconds, I was just confused about what the point of it was. And then it occurred to me, you know what this was? This was a taped promo that the wrestling promotion would keep on hand to air in case of emergency. If they needed to fill some TV time in a hurry. Well, we had an emergency on this show. A man was attacked and they broke his leg. And the show is in chaos.
True.
They don't know what else to do. Put that Flair promo on TV. They put it out there. So this fit. This made sense in the context of the show. Barry Windham versus the Italian Stallion. Barry looked like a killer this week. Just out there, this one-arm body slam, throwing this dude around, just this big-ass suplex. And he wins with a lariat. Then he goes to cut a promo. In answer to Sting's promo earlier. Yes, he says, my father taught me a lot. And Dusty Rhodes taught me a lot. And Ric Flair taught me a lot. But Sting, I've gotten here on my own. I've got more time taping up than you got ring time, Sting. You don't have the experience to judge anyone. Says, I'm going to be the U.S. champ for as long as I care to be. You came up short against the world champion. You failed to win this U.S. title too. You think about all of that. while you're hollering at yourself and beating your chest. He storms off. That was very good. This is a very good promo to plug this U.S. title match in 4 days, or 5 days, whatever that is.
Yeah, it's very good.
Ron Simmons versus Joe Cruz.
Spend the whole match putting over Ron Simmons as a future world heavyweight champion.
He's going to get it done, they said.
Yeah.
He's
Which he did years later.
Not that many years.
Yeah.
What, 5 years from now? Something like that. Ron Simmons versus Joe Cruz. Ron wins with the spine buster. The Spam Slam of the week. Has it ever been anything else except the Road Warriors hitting the double impact?
I feel like there has been, yes, but rarely.
I don't remember it, and it seems like it's the same Road Warriors clip every week. So that's what it was. So we have the squash match. We go to the break. We come back, and David Crockett and Jim Ross are clearly filling time. They're gabbering about whatever. Ron Simmons played football, 4 years of Florida State, All-American, blah, blah, blah. They openly admit we are hoping to get Ron out here for a promo. And Ron shows up. He had a 2-minute match. There was a commercial break. We had the announcers killing time for a minute or so. And now Ron's here to speak. He's totally blown up. This dude was a high-level athlete.
Yeah.
For many years.
Do you know how quickly you can lose your cardio?
Apparently very.
Yes.
So.
I got to talk about something he said.
All right.
So he says he got a promo about wanting one of the titles. He did not ask for the world title.
No.
He says, I want to talk to the kids. 4 years of college ball, 6 years of pro football. I never used drugs. Drugs ain't what's happening, he says. You can do it without that. Take my word for it. And away he goes. Ron Simmons.
I came out the hard way. I know the streets, but take it from me. You can do it without them.
Now, Ron Simmons himself did a shoot interview with High Spots. And he himself said that he did, in fact, dabble with steroids when he was in the USFL. But he insisted he never took any steroids in college football.
Okay.
So, I'll take his word for it here. Which, by the way, as I was checking this out, as I was doing some research, you know, Granny always says, I found this thing on the internet. 10 wrestlers that will never come back to WWE.
Yeah.
Okay. I found one. 10 wrestlers he'll never believe never did steroids.
Oh.
I beg of you, if you're listening to this right now, please find and read this article. It will change your life.
10 wrestlers you will never believe never did steroids.
Yes. I just want you to read it. I'm not saying, let me make it abundantly clear, I'm not saying that anyone on this list did or did not do steroids. But you must read the article. You must read how the author came to the conclusion that each person did not do steroids. That's what you have to read. Okay? This is not me judging whether anyone did or did not do steroids. Okay? But when you read it,
you're judging the author.
You will be
and
like,
his detective skills.
This is your detective skills.
Yes.
This is how you came to the conclusion that none of these people could possibly have done steroids.
Right.
Yeah.
So Ricky Morton has been teaming with Nikita Koloff. Robert Gibson quit.
I'll just give you one example. One of the men on the list is Bobby Lashley.
Yes.
Okay?
Sure.
Listen, I'm not saying that Bobby Lashley has or has not done steroids, okay? The man, here's the thing about steroids, okay? The guys who are on steroids, if you look at like pro bodybuilders, okay? Look at a professional bodybuilder, all right? Professional bodybuilder on steroids. I could not give you steroids, Vinny, and have you look like a pro bodybuilder.
I certainly would not.
No. A pro bodybuilder has impossible genetics.
Right.
Now, you add steroids on top of that, and they're a cartoon
It's an amazing
character.
cocktail,
Okay.
yes.
So, you know, there are guys like Lance. Lance had a ridiculous physique. Never took steroids.
Right.
Okay? So, Bobby Lashley, I don't know whether the guy ever did steroids or not. But the dude is freaky one way or the other.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
But this man's explanation for why he's sure that Bobby Lashley has never done steroids in his whole life. Are you ready for this?
I'm paying attention.
Because at one point, there was a Bobby Lashley Ken Shamrock MMA fight planned. And Ken Shamrock failed a steroid test. Lashley didn't. Therefore, this man has concluded that Bobby Lashley has never in his life done steroids. That is the level of detective work that has gone into this fucking article.
This man would be a hell of a lawyer.
You must read this article. You must!
Should I load it up right now?
No.
So Ricky Morton has been teaming with Nikita Koloff for a while, the Rock and Russia Express. And if you watch their promos, they have not been clicking. Ricky has been, at best, half interested and trying to get out since day one. So now, Nikita's out. Out comes Ricky Morton and Dr. Death. I can only assume that the Rock and Roll Express and Dr. Death, you put them together, you get death metal. They're facing The Menace and Jerry Price. Jerry Price is awful. I don't remember The Menace ever tagging in. Maybe he did. Most of the match is Doc throwing on submission holds and calling them out, shouting them out. This is a chicken wing with a half Nelson, he says. This is a bow and arrow. He's shouting this to the announcers so they can tell Mike Rotunda. So I guess Doc can let Rotunda know that A, he's a superior wrestler, and B, he's coming for him. Then eventually Doc wins with a power slam.
What a match.
We have a Garvin update. He's in the hospital. They're not taking x-rays yet, but they know his leg is broken. They just don't know how bad. And I think as Ross asks, David, how is Patty? Patty's a strong woman, he says. She's by her man's side. Good for her.
An excellent update.
Yes. We have a Lex Luger promo for the locker room. It was boring. He talks about waiting forever for the match in Baltimore. Didn't win the title. Tommy Young is a great referee, he says, but he's 175 pounds. Accidents happen when 275-pound bodies fly around that ring. His one demand for a rematch is that he wants a special referee. An athletic referee who can control men his size. He talks about being under pressure. He likes the pressure. He is on the verge of being the biggest thing the business has ever seen. Maybe
he's not.
Maybe he's still on the verge. He has not crossed that verge in the ensuing 30 years. The Russian Assassin and Ivan Koloff versus J.C. Wilde and Terry Jones. This was great.
Koloff is back. The fucking great music is back.
Yes.
This asshole J.C. Wilde is back. Although, to be fair, the second worst wrestler we've ever seen was fine in this particular match.
He did nothing in this match.
No. No, whoa. He did everything in this match.
You're correct. I should say he did nothing
They didn't
wrong.
even let Terry Jones in the ring.
Terry Jones never tagged in this match. Think about this.
I don't know what this means.
Think about how bad you must be that Ivan Koloff will do the entire match with J.C. Wilde instead of you. And Ivan Koloff did do the entire match. This was a one-on-one match. Ivan beat up J.C. Wilde for 2 or 3 minutes. He had things well in hand. He hits the Russian, the sickle off the ropes, the diving clubber, really. And he jumps up, but Paul Jones jumps in the apron. He says, Ivan, tag out. Tag in the big assassin. And Ivan freezes, because he's got things well in hand. He's got the win. But he nods, and he goes in, and he tags in the assassin, and the assassin hooks the Russian guillotine, which is a cobra clutch, and he puts J.C. Wilde away. So there you go. The Russians win. We go to break, and we come back for a Jones Army promo. A thing of beauty.
So Ivan here cuts his promo.
Well, Jones starts.
Well, sure. But the key is this.
Yeah.
Ivan cuts his promo, and he is a total babyface.
Absolutely.
Absolutely 100% total babyface. And I hate to give a spoiler, but since we were talking about the Clash of the Champions card,
Yes.
there is in fact a Ricky Morton, Ivan Koloff match. It is the Russian chain match that they preview here in this promo, and you'll never guess what happens.
Ivan doesn't win.
They turn on Ivan.
Ivan loses, and thus Paul Jones, the Russian assassin, lay him out.
He goes babyface.
Yes.
And This is not like something where, they're going to swerve you. They're going to have him do something diabolical on this show, but then he's a total good guy next week because he didn't see it coming. Like, if you watched this promo, you felt sympathy for Ivan. You wanted Ivan to do well. You were upset at Paul Jones for making Ivan Koloff feel bad. It was like a perfect fucking setup to get him sympathy when they turned on him.
Yeah.
This was awesome.
It was awesome. So Paul Jones says, you haven't seen Ivan Koloff for 2 weeks. Now Ivan's going to beat Ricky Morton in a chain match. He's been working out and training for 2 weeks. He turns to Ivan and faces him directly. I put a little force on you. You're going to get the job done. You're going to make Powers of Pain very happy. So Ivan starts to speak. Now, Ivan's whole deal, for 20 years at this point, I believe, has been he's from the Soviet Union. He hates America. Here, Ivan explains, in the Soviet Union, professional sports is not allowed. That is why I enjoy coming to the U.S. and wrestling professionally. When I was a very young man, my father told me to take pride in myself and my accomplishments. And Paul Jones shouts, Amen! Ivan says, I believe that I have, Paul Jones. My record proves it. All my success cannot be questioned. All my tag team success cannot be questioned. Yet you have still questioned if I am as good as I have always been. And that hurts me, Paul Jones. I welcome this chain match against Ricky Morton. This will prove to everyone I am as great as ever. To myself, to my country, and most importantly, to my father.
Ah.
Now, Ricky's record speaks for itself as well. He is a great wrestler. But I will put him down, and I will make an example out of him. And they all very happily leave together. He did not put Ricky down and make an example out of him.
No.
So I guess now, should we go over this Clash card?
Yeah, go for it.
Mike Rotunda versus Brad Armstrong for the TV title. A 20-minute draw.
Can you fucking imagine?
Dude, we get bored out of our skulls out of Armstrong in like 5 minutes.
Can you imagine?
That sounds bad. A match that makes no sense. It does not need to happen. Nikita Koloff and Steve Williams as a team beat the Sheepherders.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess Doc and Koloff are a team now.
Oh, it's going to be Nikita and Ivan. I guess they just needed something to do with these two guys.
So they had to
I don't
beat
fucking
an
have any
established
idea
team?
why.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Maybe the Sheepherders were on their way out.
That match went 17 minutes, by the way.
Huh.
Dusty Rhodes defeated Kevin Sullivan by pinning Gary Hart in 6 minutes and 59 seconds. In a Russian chain match.
I mean, the Bushwhackers were in WWE in December.
Well, maybe that's it then.
So they're running out of time.
That could be it. In a Russian chain match, Ricky Morton defeats Ivan Koloff in 9 minutes 52 seconds. It's a lot of chain match.
Well, I was wrong. So after losing to Steve Williams and Nikita Koloff, they ended up doing a tournament to crown new U.S. Tag Team Champions. Mm-hmm. And the Sheepherders got all the way to the finals and then quit. So, no, I have no idea why they lost this match.
Did they quit like before the finals?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yep.
Oh. Well, that'll be fun to look forward to. And in the main event of the Clash, Sting defeats Barry Windham by disqualification in 21 minutes and 14 seconds. There you go, everyone. Clash of the Champions Fall Brawl, 1988.
Wretched.
Back here in the studio, Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson defeat Trent Knight and Tommy Angel. Arn wins in 15 seconds with a DDT. Okay.
Getting rushed for time here.
They were very rushed for time. So the Horsemen do a promo. Dylan, addressing Cornette, says, this reject from the Comedy Store is peaked. He manages a great team that may or may not have won the U.S. tag titles without him. That's as high as he's going to go. I have had more than 3,000 matches, Jim Cornette, with a lot of tough competition. Your biggest battle was with halitosis, and you lost that one too. And this is such a good burn that he turns to Tully Blanchard, and Tully turns to him, and they do the big high five.
His exact line was, I've had some 3,000 matches in my career, and your biggest battles with halitosis. And judging from the smell of your breath, you lost that one. and then he gives the smuggest look I've ever seen a man give.
So proud of this bird.
He is so proud of this joke. He turns to Tully. They high five. Howling with laughter. Arn wants none of this shit.
Arn is not down for comedy.
He just wants to talk about the clout of the Horsemen.
Says Cornette's got some money because his mama saved her money or daddy saved his money. So Cornette's got a big bank account, but you got no clout. Dusty Rhodes has clout. Ric Flair has clout. Dr. Death has clout. Jim Cornette, you have no clout. And what this means, Jim Cornette, when we go to a restaurant and there's 200 people in line, when that maitre d' sees the 4 horsemen, he move right to that front of the line. We're not out here in mismatched suits, Cornette. There's nothing fancy about us. But if you want to be the best, you've got to beat the Horsemen. There you go.
Excellent.
Al Perez versus Rick Allen. Match started during the commercial, almost ended during the commercial. Al wins with the toe hold. We get a Gary Hart promo. Gary is blinking uncontrollably through this promo, whatever that means. Says Dusty Rhodes can't wait for this dog collar match to happen. He's not the only one. Kevin Sullivan was out here breaking Jimmy Garvin's leg. That should tell you something. It is time for Dusty to learn flesh can be rendered from the bone by a dog collar. I hope Dusty's ready because there's nothing he can do to stop it. And what happened to Jimmy Garvin is nothing compared to what's going to happen to you. And they replay the Jimmy Garvin angle for the 3rd time in the show.
We must not gloss over this Gary Hart promo. It was the best promo on the show.
I talked about it in great detail.
It was the best promo on the show. It was better than Flair. It was better than JJ with his joke. This fucking promo was so good. It was the first promo where, like, when Gary first started, promos were nothing special. Then the promo started getting really good. Then the promo started to get really good. Then we had this promo, which was great. You listen to this promo and you were like, this dude is like, this fucking guy may be the devil. That's how bad this motherfucker is. He's gonna have somebody killed. That's what I thought when this promo was over. Unbelievably, incredibly great promo by Gary Hart. The baddest dude on the planet. Till he gets pinned by Dusty at the Clash of the Champions. For no fucking reason, I might add. And then, yeah, they replayed the leg break.
And that was the end of the show.
That was the end of the show. And that, everyone, is the end of this show. We're not going to watch this Clash, I don't think.
I see no reason to.
I can't bear it. Maybe Sting and Wyndham would be good. But
I'm sure it'd be fine.
I mean, come on. 20-minute draw with Rotunda and Brad Armstrong.
The only one that intrigues me, honestly, is the chain match. And that's because I know what the angle is afterwards.
Yeah, it's only 9 minutes.
I do that.
Nah, we're not going to do it, everybody. We got more important things to do. The next Clash looks a lot better.
It actually, the next
Dr.
Clash,
Death and the Italian Stallion.
It's not the
Ivan Koloff and Paul Jones.
Well, that does. The main event of that Clash is fantastic.
Yes.
It is Flair and Wyndham versus the Midnight Express, and it rules. Rules!
So there you go.
And there will be gorilla shit all over down there.
Get into it, Vinny.
Well, it's September 10th, 1988, so I hope you watched the right show, or this show is going to be very weird. Did everything make sense to you?
Everything made sense, so I think I watched the right show.
Excellent, excellent. So it opens with a clip of Ricky Morton versus Ivan Koloff in a chain match, which was advertised for the Clash of the Champions, which would have happened the Wednesday before this show. So the finish is Ricky Morton is dragging Ivan around the ring. You have to touch the turnbuckles to win, and he is dragging Ivan to that 4th turnbuckle, trying to win the match, and Ivan's trying to drag him back to not let him win. And Paul Jones, in a panic, throws out his riding crop, and Ivan grabs hold of it. And this is to be continued.
Yeah, what a cliffhanger that was.
Who could possibly guess how this match could turn out? Because there's only one finish that can possibly be done with the touch the 4 corners stipulation, and so they're all the same.
I want to mention, by the way, a couple of notes on this show. This was the week that Tully and Arn quit, and they are heading to WWF. Been threatening to quit for a while, and they didn't like Dusty's booking, and the company didn't get rid of Dusty, and they didn't quit, and then finally they did quit. So they're out of there, and they dropped the titles to the Midnight Express on their final night in, an unplanned title change. No mention of it whatsoever here on this show, and in fact, there were references to both of them on this show, but they weren't on the show. So I don't know if they just hadn't decided what they were going to do, or if the if this show was taped before they quit, or if they'd already quit and they thought they could get them back, I have absolutely no idea. But they're gone. That's the end of 2 of the 4 Horsemen. And the company is all but sold. There are 2 holdouts, David Crockett and Francis Crockett. Hate to be a spoiler, but they don't get their way. The company ends up being sold, and everything changes. So that's the update. That's the NWA update for this week.
Now, would Frances Crockett be the sister of David and Jimmy?
Yes.
Okay. So last week on this show, you will recall that Kevin Sullivan attacked Jimmy Garvin and threw cinder blocks into his leg and broke his leg.
Yes.
And just in case, well, they showed that. And also they said, the Midnight Express have been much more aggressive as of late. Let's remind you all of how aggressive they can be. And they re-aired footage of the Midnight Express from last week's show. And by footage, I mean they re-aired the entire segment.
When I saw this, I actually thought this was only a 1-hour show. I learned it was a 90-minute show, but when the show opened up, the very first thing they do is Gary Royal and Mike Jackson versus the Midnight Express. And on the bottom of the screen, it says, recorded last week. I was like, what the fuck is this? It's just bizarre. They showed the whole match over again. And
from the moment the Midnight Express come through the curtain, the whole match, and then the entire post-match promo.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention last week, which is always a possibility, but, man, when they showed that tennis racket shot that Jim Cornette threw, and they showed it from like 5 different angles in super slow motion, that was funny.
Well, it's not often you see Jim Cornette just hit the ring and waffle a guy with a tennis racket for the DQ, so, get the most out of it.
It's just funny because it's a fucking tennis racket shot, and it was like the moon landing. They had 25 different angles, slow motion. It was bizarre.
So the show is now 7 minutes old and nothing has happened. So it's time for some conversation. They talk about Ric Flair. They talk about Lex Luger for a while. And then Jim Ross holds up a Super Bowl ring.
Oh, did he ever?
And says the owner of this ring will be the special referee of the Ric Flair-Lex Luger match. And that ref will be announced later. Also, we're going to have Sting. So we get Sting versus Tommy Angel. A question for you, Brian.
Yes.
Who wore higher pants, Sting or Shawn Michaels?
Oh, fuck. I would say it's about equal.
This week, Sting won for sure. They're pulled up way, way, way above his navel. An odd look. There's nothing else to say. He won with a scorpion in a minute.
Oh, fuck, I got something to say. So Sting's doing this match, and Sting is, without a doubt, a fucking superstar. Am I wrong?
I think that's very fair to say.
All right, so this dude is a big-time superstar. This guy just had a match with Ric Flair that went 45 minutes. It was like a legendary match. Made him a star in one night. People talk about him as a future NWA World Heavyweight Champion. He's in the ring with this Tommy Angel fella, and they note that he is 3 years into his wrestling career.
Yes.
Okay. Not 3 years into the NWA.
No.
He's 3 years into his wrestling career. Now, I'm just going to throw out a random name because it was like the first person that popped into my mind, but Angelo Dawkins, one half of the Street Profits?
I do.
Okay. He's been in WWE developmental for like 6-7 years now.
Yes.
And what in the fuck are they doing there? Do you know how long it takes for these NXT people to make it up to the main roster? Especially the ones that start from scratch. I'm not talking about a guy that, made his name somewhere else like Samoa Joe and then he ends up on the main roster. I'm talking a guy who they got and they trained him from scratch and he went to the main roster and like he's going to be a star. Like nobody's there in a year, 2 years, 3 years. It all takes him like 5-6 years to get up there to the main roster. What is going on here?
Well,
incompetence is what's going on here.
I mean, there's a lot of that. But there's also the fact that, wrestling has changed. I mean, Sting was a superstar basically from day one. And he could go on TV and be entertaining from day one. Now, was he a great worker from day one? No. So, he would learn more. I obviously, guys still learn a ton on the road, of course, but you'll if you are starting from scratch, I think you will still learn more in NXT than you would from being on the road full time. Now, as far as why does it take so long?
I don't think so, and I'm going to tell you why.
All right.
Because when Sting got trained, they trained him to wrestle, and then he went out and started wrestling. In NXT, like, whatever day it was, the Double or Nothing day, like, you could have gone on the WWE Network and watched the WWE NXT Combine. It's like, everybody's in there, and they're learning how to lift weights, and they're learning how to do powerlifting, and they're learning how to do athletic things. Are they learning how to wrestle?
Well, Sting already knew how to do those things. If Sting had been in NXT, he would have been way, way, way ahead in the Combine before he was ever, ahead in the ring. Now, you add to that he has charisma for days, and that's just a natural gift. So I see what you're saying. At the same time, it's just Angelo Dawkins, God bless the guy, he's not Sting.
I just threw a name out there, but for crying out
name,
loud,
though.
There's a million guys.
Yeah, none of them are Sting.
Well, none of them are Sting, but like, who knows who could have been a Sting if you would have just thrown him out on TV and gotten him over.
I see. I could say very few.
Well,
I guess we'll never know. So after the match, David Crockett is interviewing Sting, and there are a lot of heel fans in the building this week. So they are cheering for Barry Windham openly. Sting sarcastically calls them some of his best fans. And he says, I can't say what I'm really thinking about these guys, but they're as messed up as Barry Windham. And he says Barry Windham's got a lot of scouting reports on him from Ric Flair because of the matches they had, but scouting reports are a lot different than being in the ring with me. And then he makes some sort of callback to the fat lady who was in the show from last week. Not the last one we see on this. So after the break, Jim Crockett appears. Jim Crockett Jr. He is there to introduce and announce the special referee for the Ric Flair-Lex Luger rematch. Both contestants, he says, have agreed to the special referee. And here he is, John Ayers.
yeah.
12-year NFL vet, Super Bowl champion with the San Francisco 49ers, and the ad, he has been a wrestling referee many times. So maybe they make this announcement. John Ayers was a 12-year vet, Pro Bowler.
He was a dude.
He was an offensive lineman. And offensive linemen are almost never famous. He was very, very good at his job. He was far from a household name or a star. So Jim Crockett leaves. Lex Luger steps in. And Lex is sarcastically saying, I'm sure Ric Flair has never tried to intimidate a referee. He has never bumped one. He's never knocked one down. I'm sure he'll be thrilled with this appointment. He then claims that in his time with the Green Bay Packers, he had watched film on John Ayers many times. And I'm almost positive they played the same position, which means he would not have watched film on him even one time since they never played against each other, but whatever. He says, Flair, if you can beat me, I will admit that you are the best, but I don't believe that you're the best in my heart. And then he just rambled on for a while, and I zoned out.
Yeah, because he cut a great promo, and then he just kept going, like he always does. Talking about JJ, and then he says, I got a man in my corner, but then I think he might have been talking about the fans. It just trailed off.
Okay, we have the same impression there. We are simpatico. Ron Simmons versus Bob Riddle. My notes here read, Ron wins with diving tackle.
I think that's what it was. He won with some move. Didn't look very good. They showed a replay. Didn't look very good in the replay. So yeah, there you go.
He did a drop kick early on. That was the best thing he did. It was an awesome drop kick.
Ron Simmons. Hey, there's another guy, by the way. Debuted in 1986. So he was 2 years in during this show, and they were talking about him being a future champion. He was no Sting.
He was no Sting, though he was obviously a standout athlete.
Well, sure, but you know how many standout athletes they've hired for NXT?
Yeah, they do have a bazillion.
Probably a million you've
athletes.
Never heard of, because they're sitting there running fucking drills. They're not even on NXT TV yet.
That is true. So David Crockett goes to interview Ron Simmons. Notes he is a fantastic athlete plus a wonderful human person. Ron says it's time to look at what drugs are doing to our country and to our lives. Let's get for real, he says, and stop using these drugs. And he leaves, and David says, Ron Simmons, a true gentleman. This is the hokiest thing I've ever seen.
Yes.
Thank you, Bryan, for adding that in. The Fantastics versus Lee Scott and Jerry
Okay, I'll
Price.
add more. Another one of those interviews where he's just gasping for air.
That it did happen.
Do you know what he did against Bob Riddle? Nothing.
It was maybe a 2-minute match.
And he comes out there and he is gasping for air. And I thought, if I would have been watching this in 1988, and the dude is really big, and he did a 2-minute match and he's gasping for air, I'd have predicted, this dude ain't going to make it a decade. He'll be dead. Well, here he is 30 years later, and he seems to be doing just fine. I guess he just needed to work on his cardio.
At least this week, it was a promo right after the match. So he came out, he worked for 2 minutes, it got blown up. Last week, there was a commercial break in the middle, and he was still just gassed. Wrestling is hard, everybody. So the Fantastics wrestled Lee Scott and Jerry Price. The only thing I want to talk about in this match is Bobby Fulton threw a drop kick at Jerry Price, and Jerry Price took an all-time great bump for this drop kick. His foot came up by his face, and he jumped a foot in the air, and he threw his arms high, and he threw his feet high, and he was ass over T-kill. He went flying for this drop kick. Looked like he'd been sent to the moon by this drop kick.
I can confirm that he was not sent to the moon.
Eventually, he tagged out. In came Lee Scott, not to be confused with Scott Lee, who's probably out there too. Lee Scott was a man who had super skinny legs, and he said, I shall cover my super skinny legs in zebra print tights. They pinned him with a rocket launcher.
Yeah.
It is time for the American wrestling audience to meet John Ayers. He's quite tall, probably legit 6'6" or so. This is his post-playing career. He's leaned up some. He's tall and lanky. And I could not help but notice he's also very goofy and very awkward. So he is talking about how he once refereed a Dusty Rhodes Harley Race Championship match. Says he will not be intimidated by either one of these men. He'll call a very fair match. Right or wrong, he will be impartial. And he will tolerate no interference from outside the ring.
I could talk for hours about this. So John Ayers shows up. He's 6'4", probably around 6'4", skinny. You know, you picture like some big buff dude, because that's what we've been talking about, some tough dude that can't be run over by these two burly wrestlers. This tall, skinny dude shows up, John Ayers. And he cuts the weirdest promo in history, because I couldn't figure out if I liked it or if I thought it was absolutely fucking terrible.
The latter.
Well, here's the thing. It was a very sports-centric interview by a guy who is clearly not a professional wrestler. So, watching it as a wrestling fan, it was like one of the worst interviews I've ever seen in my life. Now, granted, his role was not to be a pro wrestler and do a pro wrestling interview. His role was to tell you why you should buy a ticket if he's referee. And quite frankly, when he was done talking, I thought, you know what? If nothing else, I believe that if John Ayers is the referee, there will be no shenanigans in this match. So, from that perspective, I guess it was effective. Now, with all that said, the very first Flair Luger match with Ayers as referee was in Greensboro that week. Guess who no-showed?
Was it John Ayers?
John fucking Ayers no-showed the first match. So you know what they did? They had Tommy Young in there, and they did the fucking throw the guy over the top rope finish.
Oh,
I swear to God. And to think they were spiraling out of business. That's the finish they did when John Ayers no-showed.
Wow. That is honestly stunning. So he finishes his promo. It's horrendous. And he's done. And then I believe Ross was interviewing him, or Crockett, whoever it was. But whoever's doing the interview, then like they bring in another announcer to talk, and Ayers is just like he takes a step into the background, And he's looking around, and he doesn't know what to do, and then he just makes the most awkward exit stage right. He just like slinks off screen in the middle of these other guys talking. This was an amazing zero charisma segment here.
Yep.
We have a recap of Jimmy Garvin breaking his leg last week, and then Kevin Sullivan, the leg breaker, comes out to laugh about it, and he says, I agree, Jimmy Garvin. We should settle this in the ring. If you want to meet me in the ring, we can do it next week. And of course, the announcer's like, oh, you know he can't be here next week, Kevin Sullivan. Says, when I jump someone outside the ring, oh, it's a crime. It's a horrible act. But when Dusty Rhodes does it, it's okay. He's Dusty. I know Dusty's no angel. When I put this dog collar on Dusty, he's going to get he says, I am going to get a beating and a good welting. But you know what they say about payback. So he leaves.
He makes sure to add that he's going to send a card to Garvin.
Yes, they get a sympathy card to Jimmy Garvin. He leaves. They go to commercial. Dusty Rhodes comes out for a promo. This is the only thing on this show that I actually remember watching 30 years ago.
This was an incredible promo. This was incredible. Dusty comes out. He says, yes, I am the flagship of the NWA, and I will whip Sullivan in our dog collar match all around the country. Now, when you hear what he does next, I want you to think about something, okay? He didn't do that first and then plug dog collar matches with Kevin Sullivan around the country. He got the promo on Kevin Sullivan out of the way so that he could tend to more important business.
Yes. So he says, I'll make Sullivan pay 20 times over for what he did to Garvin. He says, now I am the baddest of the bad. But my mama told me to apologize. Because last week, I called someone ugly and fat. And mama said I needed to look at myself in the mirror. You know, because he's ugly and fat. I need to find the good in everybody. So I'm here to take a closer look. And he takes off his sunglasses. And he puts on spectacles. And for a brief moment, he looks into the camera, the most thoughtful Dusty Rhodes you've ever seen. And he adjusts his spectacles, and he goes over to look at the fat, ugly fan, by his own words here, that was there last week. And he peers in her direction, and he sees her with his glasses on, and he screams, and he turns his back, and he runs to the back as fast as he can. David Crockett laughs his ass off and says, I love this. And that's it.
I won't lie, I laughed my ass off. Dusty's delivery was significantly better than yours.
You don't say.
It was so fucking ridiculous. But this company is sinking like a fucking stone, and I loved it. It's going down the tubes. Just entertain me.
Exactly. The Russian Assassin versus Keith Steinborn. We have major news. There is now a Russian Assassin 2. There are 2 Russian Assassins. The first one here clubbers Keith Steinborn. He puts him in the Russian guillotine, and he wins. The announcers imply on commentary that Ivan Koloff has left Paul Jones, but they don't explicitly say anything. So after the break, Crockett's interviewing Paul Jones, the Russian assassin who just...
Oh my God. This promo was better than any WWE promo I've seen in 2019. It was so good. And it's Paul Jones.
Number 1 Paul Jones.
Number 1 Paul Jones says next week he's going to debut Russian Assassin number 2, who he says is busy training right now.
He's training right now. He'll be here next week.
Yeah, so like he just got him and he started training him, and so Paul Jones way better than NXT. Like this guy's going to be debuting after like 2 weeks of training.
That's a good point.
Cuts a promo on Ivan Koloff. He's turning purple. He's turning red. He's spitting, nearly having an aneurysm. says, I love this man like a brother, but he failed me time and time again. He's finished.
Ivan Koloff was going to get rid of the Road Warriors. He did not. Ivan Koloff was going to win the tag titles. He did not.
He's doing such a great promo that the fans are chanting for Ivan Koloff.
Ivan Koloff
is the biggest babyface.
The Russian bear.
Yes.
Ivan Koloff. The fans are chanting, Ivan. Yep. Ivan.
So
it is amazing.
He vows that the Russian assassins will take down Ivan. He's embarrassed by Ivan Koloff. They show clips of the scene from the beginning of the show where Ricky is dragging Ivan to the final corner, and Paul is trying to stop it by having Ivan hold on to his riding crop. It's like, that's a hell of a riding crop right there. And of course, he lets go, and Ricky hits the corner and wins. And
this is important. When you say he lets go, Jones was the one who lost the grip of the riding crop.
Jones lets go, but he still blames it on Ivan. Ivan is the one who failed.
Yes.
Gets in the ring and screams at him. Ivan punches him out. Assassin hits the ring. They jump Ivan Koloff. Jim Ross, in a fine moment in Jim Ross's career, screams, he's turned on his comrade. They beat the shit out of the guy, and this was just great. I swear to God, I know some of you hate Paul Jones, or you don't hate him, but you just think that he was terrible at his job, or he was a terrible promo. He was fabulous here on this show. He was the best promo on this show. Who is better?
No one I can think of. So, before they show the clip, when Paul Jones is ranting about Ivan, he promises, Russian Assassin 1 and 2 will get rid of you. You will not be in this area or any area wrestling. And Schiavone says, well, let's show the fans exactly what you did. And Paul Jones bellows, they don't want to see it. But they did. So they showed the clip. And Ricky Morton wins. Assassin 1 lays out Morton. Then Ivan turns on Jones. And Assassin is attacking Ivan. And then, as Jim Ross says, here's another one. As the second Russian assassin hits the ring. It's Jack Victory, for those of you who care about such things. And they stomp Ivan bloody. They choke him with a chain. The crowd is chanting for Nikita. And that's where we leave this off. But yes, this is an amazing segment.
Jack Victory.
Jack Victory and the Angel of Death under masks as the Russian Assassin 1 and 2. Or 2 and 1, I guess, in that order. J.J. Dillon does a promo. He says he admires Paul Jones for doing what he had to do. And I have to do what I have to do. I do admit the Midnight Express are more intense than I've ever seen them. But Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson have never backed down from anyone. Jim Cornette, you will have to fine-tune the Midnight Express like they have never been before. And it will be a great match. But Tully and Arn will be prepared. And he's done. And it's good, but he had nothing to say.
Nah, there's a lot of that.
Which I guess, in hindsight, knowing this is the week Tully and Arn quit.
I mean, again, I don't know if they quit before or after the show. So if they quit, I mean, you just had to say something.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was not the greatest J.J. Dillon promo I've ever seen.
The Sheep Herders versus Eddie Sweat. Eddie Sweat, I said.
Yeah, they beat the shit out of Eddie Sweat. They made him pay for that name.
Yeah. Only thing of note here is that the announcers spent the entire match talking about what these Sheep Herders versus Tully and Arn would be like, and I thought was, that would be awesome. You know, in like a minute, those four men would have the Sheep Herders be the biggest babyfaces on the roster, and it would be a great match. This was not the Four Horsemen. It was Eddie Sweat and Rick Allen, and the Sheep Herders won with a gutbuster.
Yep.
I must transcribe and deliver word for word the opening portion of this next promo. David Crockett is there standing next to Barry Windham. And David Crockett says, he's big. He's strong. He's the United States heavyweight champion, Barry Windham. But how long will you stay the United States champion? And he holds the mic up to Barry Windham's face. And Barry says, I'll tell you. And David Crockett yanks the microphone back and says, you look at Sting. He's out there. He's fired up. He's got the stamina, right? He's got the experience and the strength. And he holds the microphone back up to Barry. And Barry looks at him and calmly, softly says, "So are you asking a question or are you telling me?" Crockett says, "I'm asking." And Barry says, "Okay." And Barry, the most professional moment of his career, he just goes on and does his promo. He calls out Sting. He calls out Dusty Rhodes. He calls out Ron Simmons. Says, "Ron, they retired your jersey at Florida State, but I'll retire your career if you come for my title. Sting, you know I can beat you. This championship belongs to me." He turns to David and says, "Do you have any more questions?" And David says, "No, I don't." And Barry nods and leaves. This was so awesome by Barry Windham and so unbelievably terrible by David Crockett, but it's what made David Crockett fun.
I beat the shit out of Marco Stunt and his father in front of Barry Windham. Highlight of my career. Proud moment.
Probably the highlight of Barry's career, too, I would bet he would tell you.
It'd be way up there, I'm sure. I hit Marco's head so hard into his merch table that some merch fell off, and he had to reach down and pick it up, so... Yeah. Very memorable. You know, before we get into the Ricky Morton match here, I want to mention in terms of David Crockett that he could not be more biased. After the Ricky Morton match, he interviews Ric Flair, and literally the first thing he says is, "Ric Flair, you are clearly the greatest NWA champion of all time."
That's what he said.
"And after you beat Lex Luger with John Ayers as the referee, you'll know you're the better man." I was like, what the fuck? What are you, David?
David Crockett is a mark.
Jesus. But usually they're like marks for the baby faces.
But Ric Flair's so great he marks out for him too. Ricky Morton and Brad Armstrong versus Agent Steel and the Menace. Ricky Morton is an all-time great wrestler. Brad Armstrong is a wrestler's wrestler who wasn't always the most exciting TV star I ever saw. I thought Armstrong took Morton down to his level. They had a very boring match as the babyface tag teams just keep swapping in and out randomly, and Armstrong won with a leg sweep.
I thought it was all right. I think you need to watch another Brad Armstrong singles match, and then you could fairly judge this one as better than most of his matches.
That's probably true. We get a Ric Flair promo. Now, I'm not going to tell you this is better than the Paul Jones promo, because Paul Jones was awesome, but this was an awesome Ric Flair promo. He's as calm as Ric Flair ever was in 1988. "It is an honor," he says, "to be in the ring with an athlete like John Ayers. One of the few enjoyments of my life that does not involve women is watching pro football. John Ayers played 12 years of pro football. He is financially successful, and he's got that ring that proves he was the best at what he did." And then at this point, he begins to transition into the Nature Boy. "I've got a ring too," he says. And he's starting to scream and squeal. "It goes around my waist. And whether you and your colleague Lex like it or not, I'm the best at what I do. Now, guys who play pro football don't like me," he says, which is, I don't know if it's a lie, but it is 100% wrong. Football players love Ric Flair and always have. But they don't like him, he says, because I don't wear a helmet. Everyone can see what a stud I am, and I make more money than you. He says, "I'm glad Big John is in there. I will be able to say I carried 2 guys in the NFL. I am not Lawrence Taylor. I am not Randy White. I'm not Reggie White. I play the game my own way. And if you turn your back on me, I will chop block you and stick a finger in your eye. And Lex, if you think you're ready to be champion because John Ayers is there to be the reinforcer, you got another thing coming. Everything is in your court, Luger, but there's still 4 of us and 2 of you. Now, next time you talk to John Ayers, you ask him about that Super Bowl ring, and then ask him what it's like the next year when he ends that season without that championship. Because I have lost that title 4 times, Lex Luger. I'm not losing it again." This was great.
This was a great promo. I don't know anything about football, so I didn't love it as much as you, but a fine delivery by Ric Flair. Not as good as number 1 Paul Jones, but hey, nothing wrong with being number 2 Ric Flair.
I've never thought about it that way, but he was on this show.
He was on this show.
Mike Rotunda and Rick Steiner versus David Isley and Larry Stevens.
Who gives a shit? I want to talk about the next match. Get this over with quick.
They're bullying Rick Steiner more. He had the match won. They ordered him to tag out so Rotunda could win.
Okay. Next up, we have Dr. Death versus Don Valentine.
We sure do.
I believe that we have agreed that Don Valentine is the worst man who has ever stepped foot into a professional wrestling ring.
We have agreed, and every time we see him, the gap between him and everyone else grows larger and larger. Like somehow, every time we see him, every other wrestler gets better.
He is so much worse than, like, Jenna Maraska,
Yes.
Vince Russo,
Yes.
David Flair.
Yes.
I mean,
Nails.
nobody. Nails. Virgil, nobody comes close. This guy comes out, and it's like he's aged 40 years from the last time we saw him. He looks like he's 200 years old. He not only doesn't have a body, but he's like, how can I explain this?
He is a...
No. If you're 30 and have no body, you look a certain way. If you're 90 and have no body, that's what this guy looked like. He's skin and just saggy bones, and he's out
looks
there...
like a cadaver.
looking worse than a cadaver. Like, you know, a cadaver would go as Don Valentine for Halloween. He's just hideous. So,
the graphic appears on the screen. Dr. Death, not Steve Williams, mind you.
Yes.
Dr. Death versus Don Valentine.
Yes.
And as soon as I saw that, I hit pause. I cleared away anything I was drinking. I set aside my phone. I stopped taking notes because I wanted to capture every second of this with my eyeballs.
Okay.
And miss none of it. And I pay rapt attention.
They announced during the match that Dr. Death had stated that he was going to go out and teach this guy a wrestling lesson. And, like, I knew it was true. Like, I knew that he'd seen Don Valentine, and he decided, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to shoot on this guy. Like, I'm not going to hurt him, but right. I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to humiliate him, and I'm going to see what he's going to do. And so he goes out there and he he barely does a double leg. Like, he touches the guy and Don Valentine falls down, and Dr. Death rolls him on his stomach and he grapevines his legs. But then instead of doing anything, he stands up and walks away, and Don Valentine doesn't move. He lays there.
He lays there on his belly with his knees bent and crossed and grapevined with each other, even though nothing is holding them in place now.
He's stuck. Okay. By the way, I jumped ahead. The very first move is a fireman's carry. Okay? A fireman's carry. With a legit wrestler executing the fireman's carry. Okay? All you have to do is be alive. All right? The aforementioned cadaver would have gone up significantly better than Don Valentine went up for this move. He didn't go up at all. He went down. And Doc had to lift him up and fucking throw him up in the air and drop him on his back. This was my favorite match of 2019. Just like Paul Jones cut my favorite promo of 2019, this was my favorite match of 2019. It was an easy 10-star match. If I still did the Figure 4 Weekly, the scale would be broken. This fucking Don Valentine was afraid of everything. He was afraid to hit a buckle. He was afraid to stand up. He was afraid to do anything in that ring. How did he get into the ring? How?
So there's a moment here. We discussed this when Doc has him on his belly in the Lapes grapevine, and he kind of like does a knee to the knee, and then he just gets up and he backs away. And Don Valentine lays there with his knees bent and crossed over each other. First of all, just think about this. If this was real and a 300-pound trained killer like Dr. Death had you down with your legs grapevine, and then suddenly the pressure is off, what would you do? You would roll over, go to your back.
You run for your goddamn life is what you do.
You'd scramble to the corner. You'd move somehow. Don Valentine lays there, and he lays there. And then, you ever see like the time-lapse videos of like a flower blooming? You see the petals. It's time-lapse, the petals still slowly open up. That's what happens to Don Valentine's legs. They very slowly unfold and go to the mat. And Dr. Death is watching this. And he kind of scratches his face. And he looks over at the announcers. Like he knew Don Valentine was bad, but he didn't really understand how bad. And they close up at this point on Doc's face. And he scratches his face in thought. And he realizes that for all his talent and all his skills, he cannot carry Don Valentine to a good match. And he, in the middle of this match, takes a deep breath and releases a great sigh, and his shoulders slump. And he decides to get this over with as quick as he can. They do like one or two more things, and he hits a stampede and wins. And he gets up, and Doc is he's flummoxed. He cannot believe, having been there with him, how unbelievably shitty Don Valentine is.
It is the new worst performance I've ever seen by a human being in a pro wrestling ring. And I am not kidding.
So they go to the break. And they come back, and David Crockett is interviewing Doc. And Doc says, the NWA has taken me lightly. And they're sticking me in there with raw meat. That is the most accurate statement Dr. Death ever made. An actual side of beef would have been a better opponent than Don Valentine. But I love raw meat, he says. And he starts putting over John Ayers, putting over NWA referees. Says the reason you don't wear a helmet, Ric Flair, is I can never find one to fit you. Ayers will be do a great job. Lex will be world heavyweight champion. He talks about Mike Rotunda. He puts over the University of Oklahoma. We win Big 8 titles. We win national titles. We win Orange Bowls. Mike Rotunda's running around with that TV title. We all know that title should be around my waist. It's time for the Doc to perform some surgery. And Rick Steiner, Kevin Sullivan, if you stick your nose in, I'll break your whole body. That was fun.
He was great.
He was great. David Crockett interviews Nikita Koloff. I'm very happy I was able to understand most of what Nikita said this week. Because we discussed earlier, there's been a major change with Ivan Koloff. And Nikita says, I have a lot on my mind. Some I want to talk about. Some I want to talk about. So he talks about Paul Jones. He talks about the Russian assassins. He talks about Ricky Morton, who he calls Punky Morton.
Punky Morton? A Punky Brewster reference?
Yes. And they have signed a contract to wrestle the Russian assassins. We'll find out how big and bad those assassins are. At no point in this promo did he ever mention the words Uncle Ivan. Because there's a lot of bad blood between those two. And just because Ivan's had a falling out with the Russian assassins, those bridges have not yet been put back together.
Well, hey, there's some things on his mind that he doesn't want to talk about right now.
Things on his mind he doesn't want to talk about. Tony Suber versus Larry Zbyszko, who I swear to God is still the Western States Heritage Champion.
Not only that, I haven't seen Larry in a long time. And I'm thinking to myself, where the hell has Larry been? And as I'm thinking that, they answer the question for me. They say, Larry, and I love the way they term this, Larry's been quietly defending.
Quietly defending
the title nationwide.
I laughed so hard at that.
Been champion since January.
Under the radar.
Yes.
Making low-key title defenses that have drawn no attention.
I'm going to defend the title before the show. I don't want any fans in there.
No.
I just want to
not announce my opponent.
Yep. I don't want anyone from PWI there with cameras.
I don't want credit for the win.
I'm just going to quietly defend the title.
I will go about my business and go home without anybody noticing.
This was the funniest thing I've heard in a while.
It gets funnier the more I think about it. Quietly defending the title.
Yeah.
Tony Suber is the big 300-pound guy who they always think maybe they'll do something with him. So Larry gave him some offense and then cut him off and went with the neck breaker. a Gary Hart promo. He says he wants the nation to see what Dusty Rhodes has gotten himself into in this dog collar match, but nobody has stepped up. Nobody has the guts to do a dog collar match. Ron Simmons, you say you want an opportunity. Well, you don't want that opportunity too bad, do you? So, of course, now that he's mentioned Ron by name, Ron has to answer.
You know what's so great about this is most of these managers are so cowardly. Not Gary Hart. Gary Hart is startled that Ron Simmons actually comes out when he calls him out, but he is not intimidated.
No.
He does not back down. He does not back off in any way. He cuts his promo on Ron Simmons. He buries him. It was great.
It took you 2 weeks, he says. 2 weeks to get your guts up. Somewhere in here, by the way, Ron says, because this feud is all about Dusty, of course. And Ron says, the American dream lives in all the fans, lives in everyone on TV, no matter what color they may be. Which I seem, in 2019, that seems completely unnecessary to say. But yes, then Gary Hart runs him down and says, Ron Simmons, you're going to be a big star for 1 week. So next week, I guess, is Kevin Sullivan versus Ron Simmons in a dog collar match.
On television. That's what they're promising.
Yes.
We'll see if they deliver.
We get Al Perez versus Mike Justice. Al's doing whatever. It's Kevin Sullivan and Gary Hart on commentary ranting about how it took Dusty 2 weeks. Took Dusty 2 weeks to flim-flam Simmons into accepting that challenge. Al hits the spinning slam and gets the win via pinfall this week. No spinning toe hold. So then Gary and Kevin do a promo as Al is just standing there. And Gary says Kevin Sullivan has had this collar on before. He's had it on with Rick Steiner at the other end. He's had it on with Mike Rotunda at the other end. And now everyone in the nation next week gets to see what Dusty Rhodes is in for. And Sullivan goes off on Dusty. One time he believed in the American dream, how if you worked hard you'd get ahead, and then he wise up the only way to get ahead is to cheat, lie, and steal. And he says, Ron Simmons, first he says, you sound like a white Dusty Rhodes. You sound so honky, he says, that nobody on the street would believe you. And he closes by saying, I am not making this up. These are Kevin Sullivan's words. The way you look, you should be sitting on our side. What?
Excuse me?
What?
Yeah.
So he leaves, and Gary Hart, who looks more like Ron Simmons than he does Kevin Sullivan, simply says, you say the American dream is all colors. The cash in my pocket is strictly green.
Gary Hart is the best.
He is.
He was so great on this show. I would go as far as to say that, in my opinion, I think he cut the second best promo on the show, behind number one Paul Jones. This was the week that Paul Jones was, in fact, number one.
He was number one Paul Jones.
By the way, we haven't done this for a while, so I think it's time. Is Gary Hart in the Hall of Awesome?
I assumed he was.
I'm not sure, actually. So I will go on record here as saying that if Gary Hart, for some reason, is not in the Hall of Awesome, then I hereby proclaim today, June 16, 2019, he is inducted into the Bryan and Vinny Hall of Awesome.
And there was much rejoicing.
Awesome.
He is awesome. He's awesome, that's for sure. So there you go. An awkward and uncomfortable end to what had been a very fun show. Between number one Paul Jones, between making fun of John Ayers promo, between whatever the hell Don Valentine is.
Dusty Rhodes' promo against the
Dusty
fat
Rhodes'
person.
promo making fun of the fat, ugly fan. Larry Zbyszko still being Western States champion. The show kind of got off to a slow start, honestly, but there was a lot to talk about.
This was the best NWA in a long time.
Yes.
One of the better wrestling shows I've seen in a while, in fact, as far as weekly television.
And Don Valentine is the worst wrestler I ever saw.
He is, like, by far the worst. And not only, let me repeat, not only is he the worst wrestler I've ever seen, but this week he put in the worst performance of any professional wrestler I've ever seen in my entire life. And think of the people we used to work with.
Oh, dude. At his worst, Big Wood was way better than Don Valentine.
Not even the same universe. I'm pretty sure that Avalanche versus Big Wood match was better than Don Valentine's performance in this match.
100 times. The two blown up overweight guys who were legit walking the ropes because they couldn't run anymore.
They walked corner to corner. They were so tired.
Yes. Better than Don Valentine.
Yeah, he's the worst. He's the worst. All right, everybody, that's it. I'm going to wrap it up now.
And there will be gorilla shit all over the Omni.
All right, let's talk about this NWA show.
NWA World Championship Wrestling, September 17th, 1988. We have a clip from, I believe, the Clash of Champions, where Barry Windham is wrestling Sting.
How did we miss this show? I guess we didn't care.
We didn't care. We mostly talked about on the Go Home show what a horrible job they did plugging the show.
Well, I want to add before you get started that the contract to sell this company is about to be drawn up. Any day now, they will be sold. And in the Observer this week, what is it, the end of August? End of September?
Beginning of September.
Beginning of September 1988, Dave Meltzer wrote these words about the NWA television show, which was in such a fucking shambles that the entire company was about to be sold so they wouldn't go out of business. He wrote, a wrestling television show should not be a self-contained episode, but rather a piece in a soap opera-like puzzle. There should be a reason to make you watch each week, and when the show ends, it should end with a teaser that makes you anticipate the next episode. Well, if that's not Raw, I don't know what is. I've even said those words repeatedly, like every show is a self-contained show. Every Raw is 3 hours of a bunch of shit happening. It doesn't lead to anything. It doesn't stem from anything. And then the next week, there's 3 more hours of a bunch of shit happening. Every now and then they stumble on something that will go on for 2 or 3 weeks, and then that will just disappear into thin air. History.
So, Sting is wrestling Barry Windham.
And Dustin Rhodes also debuted this week.
Oh, wait. He was not on this show.
No.
JJ tries to hit Sting with a chair. Barry hits Sting with a chair, goes to make a cover, but Big John Ayers won't let this happen. He pulls Windham off as the ref is counting 3.
Lifts him into the air.
He's a strong, raw-boned guy, but I'm watching this gangly dude, and he is gangly. He's lanky. He's frankly built similar to Windham. He pulls Windham off. He's in the ring. He begins to pantomime hitting a man with a chair, which I never realized how difficult this was to pantomime until I watched Big John Ayers do it. And I'm watching this guy, and he's lanky. He's got a mullet and a mustache. He can barely act. I'm thinking, this dude was a high-level athlete for a long time. How is that possible? He looked so not athletic, doing nothing here.
Well, I'm sure he couldn't bowl either.
Probably not a good bowler or golfer.
Probably couldn't do gymnastics.
He's just a very good football player.
Yes.
So that's the end. Barry's DQ'd and Sting wins.
Yeah.
The announcers have news, and boy, is it big news.
What a bookend this was.
The Midnight Express are your new World Tag Team Champions. They won the belts a week ago in Philadelphia, beating the Horsemen, which means Tully and Arn are gone, and the golden era of the Four Horsemen are over.
There are no Horsemen for over a year.
Really, the Horsemen never come back.
Well, no. But
They tried over and over and over again. They all sucked. When you go back and watch the original Horsemen, any of the 3 sets, you realize all those other Horsemen were terrible. Today we have Ron Simmons versus Kevin Sullivan with a dog collar match. And also, David Crockett will have special interviews with the Midnight Express, Barry Windham, Kevin Sullivan, Paul Jones, and the Assassins.
oh man.
And before we get to all this, Jim Ross has some very pressing news. Former University of Oklahoma football star Brian Bosworth has written a book. And in this book, Ross had apparently, he had like notepad. So apparently he didn't just tear the page out of the book. He wrote down what Bosworth wrote about how there was a wrestler named Sting who had stolen his haircut. He should get a paycheck every time Sting appears on TV. And Ross says, Bosworth, as a fellow Oklahoma football fan, I want to assure you that Sting had that haircut before you did. If you think you're a good athlete, come on down to Jim Crockett Promotions. We'll find out how good you are. In the meantime, we wish you luck with the Seahawks.
Yeah.
He did not have luck with the Seahawks, if you're wondering.
Oh, I was going to ask.
Yeah.
How he done there?
Fantastics versus Mike Jackson and Eddie Sweat.
What was this book called?
I think it's called The Boz, as I recall. Yeah. I actually did read it at one point, like years later. Fantastics versus Mike Jackson and Eddie Sweat. There's a lot of action with Mike Jackson and the Fantastics. I wasn't always sure what they were trying to do, but they were in motion the entire time. And then Sweat tagged in, and it was not remarkable, and the Fantastics pinned Sweat with a rocket launcher.
Brian Bosworth gained fame and notoriety through his flamboyant personality, controversial comments about the National Collegiate Athletic Association, and radical haircuts.
He did have a radical haircut. There's no doubt about that. He had a mullet, Brian, where he shaved the sides and then dyed what was left of the sides in the team colors.
Well, now he's got a shaved head.
Now he's bald, yeah. Well,
No, he just shaved it, looks like.
That
was 2009. He's probably bald now.
It's 30 years since his mullet days, so yeah. Ric Flair came out and cut every Ric Flair promo you ever saw.
Very generic, nothing happened promo.
To be the man,
good delivery.
It was a very good promo you've seen 7,000 times in your life. Lex, you're a big man. You got a physical aspect, but you got to beat me. To be the man, you got to beat the man. I am the man. The Russian Assassins versus Keith Steinborn and Gary Royal.
So Jim Ross is talking about whispers in the business.
Oh.
That these men might load their masks.
That's right.
And I thought, man, what good foreshadowing for down the... Before I could even finish typing that, there's a fucking loaded mask. And he headbutts this geek. And actually, I liked it because it's very much like the Forgotten Sons. Wait for the tie-in?
I'm listening.
Okay.
They are, in fact, interchangeable.
They were killing these dudes, and they didn't need to cheat.
Right.
But they did.
Yeah.
Because they're shitheads.
They're mean people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I liked it.
They sold nothing. They took the entire match, a complete squash, and then just to be a dick, they cheated at the end.
Yes.
So now Paul Jones and the Russian Assassins are going to do a promo. Paul Jones begins and says, I have asked Russian Assassin number 1 to say something to Ivan and Nikita Koloff in their mother tongue.
I wish we were next to each other to recreate this.
We should actually come over there. He says, I've asked him to say something to Ivan and Nikita Koloff. And he stops. And he looks up at the assassin.
Ah!
And he looks. And finally he smacks him in the back. At first it was just like, okay, the assassin was just cute. But then you think about it, no. He's Russian. He doesn't speak English.
Oh, I see.
He didn't know Paul Jones was giving him the office.
Ah!
Until Jones smacked him. So now the assassin...
Man, that logic went right over my head.
It was very subtle.
Wow.
The subtle qualities of the Paul Jones promo can be missed by many.
He sounds like he's speaking Spanish, not Russian. It's a horrible, horrible attempt at Russian.
To think they wouldn't even let Barry Darso try.
Yeah.
He's just a Russian sympathizer. He did some kind of promo running down the Koloff.
There's a lot of things I wish they wouldn't have let Barry Darso try, now that I think about it.
In hindsight. Jones brings up the boss, says his teammates didn't respect him for making jokes in the locker room. They respected him for getting the job done. Ivan Koloff, you didn't get the job done. You're not going to run your Russell, what do you say? You're not going to make me look a fool.
You're not going to go around and tell people what a bad person I was.
You're
not going to wrestle anymore, and you're not going to have any partners because they all know you can't get the job done.
Thank you.
He was fucking great, and on that note, better late than never, yes, we must induct Hacksaw Jim Duggan into the Hall of Awesome, the newest entrant.
Based on his appearance, his performance.
Dude, he had another one a while ago that we raved about that you've already forgotten about. Like, he's great.
On the last Retro Nitros, it really put him over the edge.
Yes, that put him into the Hall of Awesome.
And coincidentally, somebody just shared a random one on Twitter on Mid-South, which I've seen almost none of his Mid-South run. Ted DiBiase and Jim Duggan as a heel team.
Oh, my God.
And
that sounds awesome.
Especially because in this promo, at least, and maybe this is just a one-time thing, Duggan was so clearly the better talker of the two.
Dude, he's a better talker than almost anybody.
He was pretty great. Yeah.
He just had very generic, basic promos he had to cut.
If any of you are looking for it, they're cutting a promo on, I think it's the go-home promo for the Loser Leaves Town match against JYD and Mr. Olympia, where the loser of the fall is gone for 60 days.
Oh, man.
Yes.
I remember when I lost to Ryzik, and the stipulation was loser must leave for 3 months, and I did not come back for 6 years.
Yes. Well, you obeyed the rules of the stip.
I overcompensated.
You overdid the stip.
Might have been 4 years, but it was many, many, many years.
Now, at the end of this, am I crazy or did David Crockett casually mention that Ivan and Nikita are back together?
I think he did, and I think they are. Here and there, maybe on the road.
Brad Armstrong versus Agent Steel.
Boring, nothing happened in match. The only thing of note is there was apparently that Armstrong-Rotundo title match.
All right.
Great athletic contest. Ross could not stop raving about it, about how great it was. There's few men who can hang with Mike Rotundo. But Brad Armstrong did it. They had an exceptional contest. He just loved it. And Leroy McGurk passed away.
I thought you were going to say the only notable thing here was that Agent Steel was Steal.
Well, there was that too.
Agent Steel.
I did laugh.
Brad eventually beat this guy with a dropkick and leg sweep.
It's one of the charms of these old shows is they spell everyone's name differently every fucking week. How many Dale Laperouse spellings have we seen?
Thousands.
Like 50.
I'm not sure it was all the same guy.
And that's what makes it so great. It's like, you could say, this company's so low rent, they spell his name differently every time. But then you realize, it's fucking Dale Laperouse.
Who cares?
I mean, they're not putting any thought into this.
It should be Dale L.
Nor should they.
Yeah. Nikita Koloff promo. I believe he said Paul Jones has a warping mind.
Hey, I understood 95% of it, so it was much better than usual.
All right, what did you get out of this?
I don't know what he said. I just remembered. I didn't write it down.
Okay.
I just remembered I heard every word he said for once.
He talked about all the things Paul Jones and his men have done, attacking the Road Warriors. That scar on Animal's eye could have been a scar on my eye. You were very good, Paul Jones, at getting big, powerful men. And Nikita's also a big, powerful man. Maybe like an inch or two shorter than these assassins. He holds his hands up like they're giant Gonzalez. Like big, powerful men. He wants Paul Jones and the fans to know, for him, there is no law. He can be bad, and the people know it. Dr. Death and Curtis Thompson.
My favorite spot of the night.
So Curtis Thompson is running off the ropes.
He's a big jacked up dude.
He has a better physique.
He has a better
than Dr.
physique
Death.
than virtually everyone on this show.
Yes.
But he sucks.
He's no good. The closest thing I can say to this.
I'll just tell you what happened.
All right.
He hit the ropes and he leaped into Dr. Death's arms.
That's what happened.
And Dr. Death slammed him. At which point, Tony Schiavone said,
No. We have to tell the whole story. Thompson jumps up.
yes.
He did jump into Doc's arms.
He jumped into his arms.
And Doc just slammed him down like a spine buster.
yes.
At which point, you asked, quote, what was your plan, Curtis Thompson?
That is what I asked.
And then 30 years ago, Tony Schiavone answered your question. I don't think he had that move planned.
Well,
It was amazing. This could have been timed any better.
no, it's me and Tony are on the same wavelength.
So the story
Through
is...
the ages.
Yes, through time itself. The story of this match, or the story of Doc, is...
There's more than that.
He also had a match with Mike Rotunda. Apparently, I guess it went a 20-minute time limit, because now Doc wants Mike in a 60-minute time limit.
Oh, I can't wait.
Doc won here with a stampede and did not go 60 minutes. A Road Warriors promo.
Very good, serious promo.
This is, well, yes. A couple of things notable about this. The Crockett lets them know, Jim Cornette's now managing the World Tag Team Champions, and he says, you guys are next in line. Which you would think would be good news, but they're just in a foul mood. And Animal snarls at Crockett. He doesn't say who's next in line. We say when we're next in line. We dictate our own destiny. We ran off the powers of pain. The Four Horsemen have lost the titles. They're out of here now. And now we want a title shot. And then they go to Hawk. And Hawk has no jokes. He's got nothing wacky, no goofy stories, nothing about pimples or anything. He just says, we deserve this title shot more than anyone else. We're looking way down at everybody else. They're looking way up at us. Paul Ellering begins to talk about the truth. Asks, for some people, or says the truth is something you believe, or it's something somebody tells you. We believe the truth, and we believe we deserve a title shot. And he warns the fans, we'll do anything to win a match. And then Hawk closes with the catchphrase, we snack on danger and dine on death, and is sure to add, dead men don't make money. There's a different Road Warriors this week. Things have changed here in the tag team division. Ivan Koloff versus Jerry Price. Jerry Price sucks. Ivan slams him on the floor at one point. a long time. Shivani says Ivan has no friends and has to fight alone, which goes against the story that he and Nikita are back together now. Eventually, Ivan wins the Russian sickle. This sucked.
So during this match, I believe they said that he had won 20 world championships around the world.
It was the interview afterwards, but yes.
Okay, well,
he hasn't.
I counted 10.
That's less than 20.
10 championships that he'd won that world was in the name of them.
So you're counting World Tag Team, for example.
Yeah, if it says world,
all right,
that counts. But that's still only 10. But in his career, he held 2,000 championships. So he was a rather decorated individual.
Sure. So Crockett's interviewing him, and Ivan cuts this promo. Holy shit.
This was one of the great promos that I've seen in all of 2019.
Ivan looks dead into the camera, and he is stone-faced, dead serious for this whole thing. This had gravity and weight. And this crowd's silent for the whole thing, because they want to hear what Ivan has to say. And he's not quiet, by the way. They're just paying very close attention. Ivan says that he is here. He is not here to dwell on his past championships. He is here to give a message to Paul Jones and the Russian assassins. In this life, he says, we are all responsible for our own actions. I have not always been right, he says, but I hold myself accountable. I am ashamed for some of the things I have done. But I do not ask for forgiveness, and I do not ask for help. I feel responsible for bringing the Russian assassins to America. When Paul Jones asked me to bring these men, he did not say, go find the most gentle tag team you can find. He said, go find the most violent, dangerous, vicious, nasty tag team you could find. And I brought him the Russian assassins. I created the situation, and I will take care of the situation. You order me, Paul Jones, to go out and break arms. You order me to go out and hurt wrestlers. Now, I am from the old country. I do things old country way. And old habits are hard to be broken. But you, Paul Jones, you are an American. You have a choice as a free American. And you choose to hide in the gutter and sneak attack people from behind. Now, you may try using that riding crop of yours. Your assassins may try those loaded headbutts. But you will never have enough to deal with Ivan Koloff. He storms off. And David Crockett just shakes his head and says, truly a great man.
Dude, I'm trying to think of anybody today who can cut a promo like this.
No.
The closest I could come up with is probably Samoa Joe. But a Samoa Joe promo, when I hear it, I think this is a fantastic pro wrestling promo. I can't wait to see him beat this guy's ass in a pro wrestling match. But it still doesn't feel like the guy, Joe Cianoa, is cutting this promo.
Sure.
It's the character Samoa Joe. No. This fucking promo was so good because when you watch it, like, this is Ivan Koloff. You believe that this is a real guy, and he's dealt with a lot of things in his life, and he's telling you about it, and he's telling you about life, and what he's learned in his 45 years and 20 world titles, and how he's going to use what he has learned, and he's going to take it out on these men. Like, I can't even begin to explain like how real this promo was.
Yeah.
And it was a fake bullshit promo about two fake Russians.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous. Give the date of the show again.
September 17th, 1988.
Everybody, go back and watch the Ivan Koloff promo.
About halfway through the show.
It's unbelievably great.
It's fantastic. The Midnight Express, in their very first match as the tag team champions of the world, faced J.C. Wilde and Bruce Hollis.
They kill these idiots. J.C. Wilde was merely totally shitty this week.
Much better than usual.
He wasn't the worst I've ever seen.
There was a point here, and they worked with J.C. Wilde, and he was terrible. And they threw him out to tag in Bruce Hollis. And Bruce tags in and enters the ring, and he attempts to circle the ring. That's all, everyone. Not a lockup, not a punch. He's not doing anything but circling the ring. After you watch Ivan Koloff's promo...
Please tell me you went the wrong way.
You did not go the wrong way.
Okay.
But I want you all to watch Ivan Koloff's promo, then stick around for this match, and just watch Bobby Eaton watch Bruce Hollis. He can't even believe this guy.
My favorite is they beat these guys, they beat these guys, they beat these guys. And finally, Eaton goes up top, hits the Alabama Jam, goes for the cover, but then doesn't pull the man up. He pulls the man on top of himself.
Yes.
He commands the referee to count.
The ref is confused. Doesn't count anything.
And then he kicks out onto the referee, stands up, and he is howling at what he has done.
And
then they win. I loved this.
So both these guys were way, 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 way better than Don Valentine, but they were terrible.
Yeah.
This may well have been the worst tag team I've ever seen, and I'm like 99.99% sure it's the biggest gap between two teams I've seen in a match.
I'd say so.
So that was an amazing spectacle. Eventually, they pinned Hollis with a flapjack. The Spam Slam of the Week for the 93rd week in a row.
By the way, we should mention, if you didn't, that the Midnight Express are the World and U.S. Tag Team Champions. They are double champions since they beat Arn and Tully. They come out with all of the belts, and Cornette's on commentary, and he announces that they will have to give up the U.S. Tag Team titles. The belts are going into a tournament, and he says, we're going to talk more about this in a minute. In the middle of talking nonstop for about 2 hours, he says this.
Yeah. And they really never did.
No,
talk about this
there's no update.
For the 93rd week in a row, the Spam Slam of the Week is the Road Warriors hitting the Doomsday Device. So the Express are doing their promo. Stan actually gets to talk this week. It's a big week. They're the World Tag Champs.
He says it's not liquor, limos, and women that make you champions. It's hard work.
He's gloating about the Four Horsemen for all their boasting about the champagne and the fancy cars. Now they are broke and drinking generic beer, staying at the Days Inn. Mike Rotunda and Rick Steiner versus Mike Justice and Terry Jones. I am not sure which jobber was worse, but one was tall and muscular with a terrible mullet. Not a beautiful mullet, a terrible mullet. The other was short and had no body and shitty hair and a mustache. So Rick is also fucking around this week. He's wrestling in his Letterman's jacket just cuz. He grabbed one guy and hit what appeared to be a shoot dominator. The dude did not go up or lift at all, and Steiner just hurked him to the sky and slammed him onto his face. Hits an overhead belly to belly. Rotunda demands he tag in and hits a butterfly suplex for the win, and Steiner piles on as they are fighting for camera time. Kevin Sullivan versus Ron Simmons in a dog collar match. We are told the winner will be the man who can answer a 10 count. It's a last man standing dog collar match.
You know, when they came out and they announced there was a dog collar match coming up next, and sure enough there was, I saw Ron Simmons and Kevin Sullivan in the ring, and I thought, what are these fucking guys are doing a job? I don't buy it. And sure enough, Simmons and Gary Hart get into it. Gary Hart slaps Ron Simmons. Bad idea. Ron Simmons does the easiest takedown you've ever seen, with Gary holding onto the ropes to let himself down even more gently. Sullivan whacks Simmons with the chain. They beat the hell out of him. They try to hang him with the chain. And finally, Dusty runs down to make the save. So afterwards, Dusty does his promo, and he challenges Sullivan, and they end up going to Jim Crockett, and he just says, well, the next time we promise a dog collar match, it'll be padlocked, and nobody will get out. And he walks off.
There will be no hanky-panky, he says.
I'm like, dude, you just promised that 2 minutes ago, and I got fucked out of it, and now you're going to come out here and tell us, oh, don't worry, it's not going to happen next time? Which reminds me, after that cage match, the only thing that I can hope is that next week we get backstage footage of William Regal watching the cage match with his William Regal faces as 9 million people interfere and screw up his cage match, at which point he can announce that every match from this point forward, every cage match will be inside Hell in a Cell with a roof on top. That'll at least save this. I don't think it's happening.
So a couple things about this match. Sullivan never even actually had the dog collar on. He faked it, basically, to ambush Simmons. I hope nobody ever hits me with a chain, but if I must be hit with a chain, I want Kevin Sullivan to be doing the hitting. He was so light with these chain shots on Ron Simmons, and there were a lot of them.
You're going to fucking hit Ron Simmons hard with a chain?
I certainly am not.
No.
I certainly am not. Simmons makes his comeback, gets backdropped over the top for the DQ. A DQ in a dog collar match. And then, yes, Al runs out. They try to hang him. Dusty makes a save and says, come put a collar on me. We'll find out how bad you are. And that's that. Yes, then we had the promo on the padlock. There'll be no hanky-panky. Gary Hart almost saved this. First of all, he says, this is none of Jim Crockett's business. This is a personal situation, this dog collar match on Jim Crockett's wrestling show. But if you want to throw a padlock in there, that's just another weapon they can use. Now, on top of everything else wrong with this whole segment took like 4 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
The match, the beating, Dusty making the save, and the promo announcement after.
Thank God we had these two standby matches left.
Yeah.
Randy Mulkey.
We had to watch Barry Windham and Randy Mulkey. I don't know what got into Barry Windham this week. He appeared to be in a rotten mood and was taking out on poor Randy Mulkey. Randy gets thrown out on the cement and goes splat. And there's a loud splat as his body, which is not a very big body, hits the ground. And Dross accurately says Randy Mulkey may have hurt his lower back for the rest of his life right there. Right after this, Barry comes out and slams on the cement a few more times.
Yeah, but then he got in the ring and held the ropes open for him.
He did.
That was very polite.
Eventually pinned him with the, slams him over and over again, hits the lariat and wins.
I felt bad for Ross because, like, everybody's left. And so he's got to just do the hard sell of, we have the greatest lineup of champions of all time here in the NWA right now. So rattling off all the champions.
Well, the champions are great.
It's like, yeah, you got good champions, but fucking everyone's leaving.
I don't know if there's anyone.
Your company's about to be sold.
I don't know if the great champions have any challengers, but the champions are great. That is true.
They never win.
All the time on this show. So we have a Wyndham and J.J. Dillon promo. Dillon is asked about the loss of the World Tag Team titles, and first of all, he says, I want to talk about Don Owen, the dean of wrestling promoters, not just on the West Coast, but all over the country. And he says this, of course, because Ric Flair is doing a title defense in Portland on Tuesday. He adds that Don Owen is very interested in Barry Windham as well. They are negotiating a date in the near future. Now, as for the World Tag Team titles, he admits that Philadelphia was an interesting night.
I'll say.
And that's the last thing he has to say about Tully and Arn, ever, really.
Well, he says the Horsemen will always be here. I'll have some exciting news in the coming weeks.
I suppose so.
I presume that means in the next 80 weeks.
He still manages the U.S. and World Tag Team Champions. That is quite an accomplishment. On that given night, Cornette, you manage the better team, but now you must stand the test of time. And he rattles off all the other teams that are going to challenge him. Then it's Barry Windham's time. Barry Windham was awesome. I don't know if you're all aware of this. Barry Windham was great. He says, Sting, you're the only guy in this company who's got to get a bodyguard. You got to get an ex-pro football player. There's a lot of those guys around. Luger was an ex-pro football player. He can't get the job done either. Ex-football players are a dime a dozen. Runs down Sting for a while, holds up the U.S. title and says, this is what it's all about. And if you can't do it by yourself, it's not going to get done. Thought this was awesome. Sting versus Max MacGyver. Sting works the nose, wins with a splash and the scorpion.
They send their best wishes to Jimmy Garvin. Jim Ross says, Doctor said when he was younger this break would heal quickly, but at this point it's hit and miss. We actually don't see him for another year.
A long time, yeah.
Yeah. And then an amazing Sting promo.
This was awesome.
You know what's so amazing about it is he knows he's only got like a minute left, okay? And he said some other stuff about John Ayers and everything like that, which granted he was asked about.
He's talking about John Ayers and Brian Bosworth.
No. That's the most important thing on the show. For the entire show, from the very beginning of the show, they have been talking about how Brian Bosworth in his book was angry at Sting for copying his hairdo. And Ross cuts the promo at the beginning about how we got the original if Bosworth wants to get in the ring and he talked to Jim Crockett Promotions. Did the whole thing. We had Paul Jones talking about Bosworth. Finally, at the end of the fucking show, here's Sting. It's finally his chance to react to Brian Bosworth saying that Sting stole his haircut. But first, this fucking idiot, and God bless him, David Crockett has to ask him about a bunch of other shit. John Ayers and cheating and
fans like
fair
you.
Is fair and the fans like you. So finally Sting's like, I got a lot of things on my mind right now, especially this haircut. Brian Bosworth! And Crockett goes, we're out of time. And Sting goes, Bosworth! And David goes, no, seriously, we're out of time. And Sting just goes, I guess I just gotta do this. Woo! And then literally as the mics are cutting, he goes, "It really ticks me off when I don't have time to talk to the people out there." And they cut away.
That's a great finish.
How could you fuck this up? The one goddamn thing they built the entire show for. That's the only thing you need to ask Sting about. Not Wyndham, not the fans. Just ask him about Bosworth. That was the end.
I enjoyed it. It made me laugh.
We better open next week's show with Sting cutting a promo on Brian Bosworth. Otherwise,
I wouldn't hold
I
your
need
breath.
to rewrite Death of WCW. Because I'll be just shit rage.
Because Sting
That's
didn't
even more
mention-
than outrage.
Sting didn't mention
Yes.
Brian Bosworth
The easiest
a
guy-
week before WCW existed.
That's why they died, Vinny. They threw away the easiest things. This is the story of WCW. Everything falling into their lap. Brian Bosworth writing a book and mentioning Sting, and they botched the question at the end of the show. Fuck. Sempervive was right. Crockett sucked. All these years. Like the end of Star Blazers. Finally hits me here at the end. Crockett wasn't any good. All right, I'm done.
And there will be gorilla shit all over the Omni.
All right, well, let's get going with this NWA show.
NWA World Championship Wrestling, September 24th, 1988. We have clips from the arena where Ivan Koloff pins Tony Super with a Russian sickle. He is immediately attacked by the Russian assassins and Paul Jones. And here comes nephew Nikita to make the save. And he gets the chain and he cleans house on these assassins. He sends them packing. And Ivan turns, he sees Nikita, and he drops backward, fists up in a defensive position because it's Nikita. They've had their wars. And Nikita throws down the chain, and he offers his hand in friendship, and we cut away in the graphics roll.
I already love this angle.
Perfect.
It's better than anything they're doing on the WWE main roster today. Can't say it's better than anything they're doing in the G1, but this is a great storyline, as we'll get to.
And everything makes sense.
Yeah.
Ivan and Nikita have been fighting for years. When Ivan sees Nikita with a chain in his hand, he's going to freak out.
But this is his uncle.
It is that they are
Slash nephew.
uncle and nephew, yes. It's family.
Allegedly. They're just two dudes, actually, in real life. Hate to break kayfabe.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
So we go to the announcers to open the show, and they just flap their gums forever. The only thing really of note is when they said among the upcoming shows, they tour through an area Jim Ross knows well. And Ross plugs a series of matches in Louisiana and, I don't know, Arkansas. The whole Mid-South area, he's sure to point out. Yeah. The Road Warriors, one word, Road Warriors, versus The Menace #1 and The Menace #2.
2 words.
Yes.
Wasn't Menace 12.
No.
No.
So the Warriors, not waiting for any music, they win in like 30 seconds of the Doomsday Device.
You know, it's funny because I can't decide if I like the 1 hour show or the 90-minute show better. Because the 90-minute show gives the matches more time. That's not always a positive.
No.
I mean, this is just like a bunch of 10-second matches that are just like a complete waste of my time. Like, I'm struggling to find something to say about the Road Warriors versus Menace 1 and Menace 2. I mean, the best I can come up with is at least both of the Menaces showed up tonight. Sometimes it's like one Menace and the other is God only knows where. But there's nothing to talk about here. They just went in there and killed them.
Well, it's funny you mentioned
Moving
that.
on.
It's funny you mentioned that because there were at least 4 masked jobbers in this show. So maybe these menaces came back later.
Could have been.
Could have
but I
been.
like to believe they're all different men.
So the Road Warriors do a promo that was noteworthy. Now,
No fucking puppet. That was noteworthy.
That was no puppet is a plus. So they have been destroying men in this territory for years now, but they've never been World Tag Team Champions. And the Midnight Express have been heels, U.S. champions. They've won the U.S. titles, lost the U.S. titles. And then suddenly they get a title shot ahead of the Road Warriors. And they win the titles. The Road Warriors are angry. And Animal outright said, these are, what I'm going to say is quotes. There's more to this. I didn't write down every word he said, but says, people may not like the way we're going to win the belts, but we're going to win them.
Yep, he said, people out there aren't going to like how we win the belts, but we guarantee we're going to win them. And then Hawk reiterate, we'll beat anybody
Yes.
to win these belts. They flat out told you, we're going heel.
We'll beat
so
anybody
you better
up.
get ready.
We'll beat anybody up to get those belts around our waist. We're going to win them whether you like it or not. We don't care.
They're sick and tired of second-rate champions.
Yep. There's no joking. Hawk had no obscure body parts to name. They're two giant, furious, pissed-off men. And trouble is brewing.
You know what's funny is that the Road Warriors are these two big, scary badasses that win every match in like 5 seconds and they never lose. And in NWA Crockett, they consider a second-rate team Arn and Tully or the Midnight Express.
Yes.
The WWE Women's Tag Team Champions right now are Peyton Hoyce and Billy Kay. This is not the same business.
No, I'm not up to speed. Do they win every week?
They never have matches.
Uh-huh.
They literally have not beaten one team since WrestleMania that was not a squash.
Well, that's a poor record then.
They faced like 10 teams. They've lost to every single one of them. None of these matches ever lead to like a championship match. And then finally they announced that the Iconics were going to face the Kabuki Warriors in Japan on just like a house show.
Okay.
And if the Kabuki Warriors won, they'd get a tag match.
Okay.
They didn't mention this for weeks after it had happened. Finally, one day they announced they're going to get the title match on this edition of SmackDown, and the Iconics immediately walk in and get counted out.
Cool.
WrestleMania was in April. It's fucking the end of July. This is bullshit.
Now, Bryan,
And not good heat, I might add.
I agree. The Iconics are not the same thing as the Road Warriors.
The Iconics are better than the Midnight, or they're not better than the Midnight Express or Arn and Tully. That's what I'm getting at here.
Or frankly, the Sheep Herders, the Fantastics.
Or frankly, the fucking Menace 1 and Menace 2.
No, any team on the show.
I'm not sure I'd go that far. I'll have to keep watching.
Barry Windham versus Agent Steel.
Barry kills him with a lariat immediately.
See, I thought he took his time. He did finally.
What, 30 seconds?
Agent Steel got offense,
Well, kind of.
which is more than we can say for the Menace number 1 and the Menace number 2.
Let's talk about this Agent Steel. I finally cared enough to find out who it was.
Did you?
Yes. It's Brad Anderson. He is the legitimate son of Gene Anderson.
Oh, hey.
And believe it or not, he debuted in 1988.
Well, we're watching rookie year Agent Steel.
Yeah, and he's fucking not bad at all.
Not bad at all compared to a lot of the guys in this show.
I have no idea why he didn't do more in his career. Maybe somebody could tell me. But yeah, he looked totally fine here for a guy who literally just broke in.
Yeah.
Think about like the Aaliyahs of this world. God bless her and all, but fuck. She's been doing this for like 7 years now. 7 years!
Yeah, I understand.
I gotta find out.
So JJ Dillon and Wyndham do a promo. Dillon says, the last time I was in Philadelphia, Jim Cornette caused me considerable embarrassment.
God bless her, but she's been doing this for 6 years.
She's not very good.
6 years.
She's not as good as Agent Steel. So, the last time I was in Philadelphia, Dillon says, Jim Cornette caused me considerable embarrassment. I signed a contract to redeem that situation, and he challenges Cornette to sign the contract as well. What a very odd push. They're devoting national TV time to build a Jim Cornette versus J.J. Dillon match in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Won't even be on TV. So, Wyndham says that Jim Ross has been calling me overconfident, but I've been listening to you guys on commentary. You're the ones saying I'm the best U.S. champion of all time. I didn't say any of that.
He is pleased that David Crockett called him the greatest U.S. champion to date.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is like being proud of your spot in the PWI 500. That's what we're talking about here. David Crockett thought you were great.
Not a lot of credibility.
Jesus. I realize he's a babyface announcer and always puts over the babyfaces, but
Put over Wyndham, though.
yeah, he puts over Flair.
Yeah.
Calls Flair the greatest of all time.
Yes.
He's a horseman, Mark.
And Barry says he will defend this title against anyone, including Sting. He is sure to note Sting has tried and failed to win this belt several times. Sting versus Jerry Price. The big spot in this match is they're doing a big crisscross, and then Sting starts doing drop downs and leapfrogs, and he just screams at Jerry Price, who is so scared he falls out of the ring.
He howls.
Yes.
And Sting actually explained this afterwards in his promo. Sting actually said these words. Keep in mind, they did a high spot. There was jumping. There were drop downs. There were leapfrogs. And finally, Sting howled at him, and he took a bump and fell outside. Sting explains to the viewers at home, The howl did not hurt, but it bewildered his opponent.
Clearly.
Those were the words he used. Yeah. It bewildered him. I love Sting.
This promo by Sting.
Have we put Sting in the Hall of Awesome?
You know, I have not kept track of that.
Okay, well, if we haven't, 1988 Sting is an induction into the Hall of Awesome.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because this promo by itself should get him in.
He is beyond awesome in 1988.
He wins with a Scorpion, if that needs to be said. Then he explains, you notice when I put him in the Scorpion, I made sure his face was not facing the hard camera. His spandex is so thin, he says, you could see his underwear through it.
Oh, the worst.
It embarrassed him, and it embarrassed me.
Dude, he's lucky he was wearing undies.
As he's ranting, he says, don't tell me what camera to look at. I'll look at this camera. I'll look at this camera. I'll look at the floor if I want to. Although that's kind of boring. Starts talking about Wyndham. Says, Barry, you say that I failed to win that title. I'm going to do a number on your head. Maybe it'll be a fair fight. Or it won't be a fair fight. That's what I'm trying to say. It's a whole new ball game. No, it's a wrestling match. Let's wrestle. Sting had absolutely no idea what he was going to say from one word to the next. Everything that happened in Sting's promos was a surprise to Sting. It's so completely like the opposite of scripted.
Yeah.
This
was an unscripted promo.
I guarantee you. And if it was scripted, it would have been horrible.
Yes.
This is why, anyway.
Okay, so I can confirm...
Sting is awesome.
I can confirm that Sting has gone into the Hall of Awesome.
Okay.
But as I look at the Hall of Awesome, many men have been put in multiple times.
Well...
including Dick Murdoch, who has been in a record 4 times.
A 4-time Hall of Awesomer.
So I believe that it is okay that we once again induct Sting into the Hall of Awesome. I was unaware Hacksaw Jim Duggan, a 2-time inductee.
Really?
Into the Hall of Awesome.
What's the first time for?
December 2018. It was a Bryan, Vinny, and Craig show, so it must have been another appearance on Nitro that just blew us away.
Interesting.
Yeah, look at that.
Well, the second one was better. I'll tell you that much.
Maybe I should write another book after 100 Things WWE fans should know and do before they die. The Hall of Awesome by Bryan Alvarez. 100 men who deserve to be in the Hall of Awesome. And why?
I could co-write that with you.
I would have to go back, however, and find out why these guys went in all these times. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Might be a lot of transcribing going on.
Sure, yeah.
Midnight Express versus Cruel Connection #1 and Curtis Thompson.
So here's a great example of this. Where the fuck was Cruel Connection #2?
Well, I don't know.
Touring?
We now had...
He was too big a star to show up here in the studio to back up his friend Cruel Connection #1.
We had The Menace #1, The Menace #2, Agent Steel, and now Cruel Connection #1. 4 masked jobbers in 4 matches. Maybe they ran out of masks. Maybe Curtis Thompson is Cruel Connection #2.
Have you fucking seen Cruel Connection #2 and Curtis Thompson? They have nothing in common, except they're male.
Curtis Thompson would stand out to that.
And I'm not even sure that Cruel, the other guy, who'd you name? Menace #2? Mm-hmm. I'm not positive. Never mind.
He was wearing a bodysuit.
Let's move on. He was lumpy.
Okay, the announcers, when the Warriors came out and did their promo, you may not like the way we're going to win, but we're going to do it, and we don't care if you like it or not. The fans all cheered. The announcers are repeating that line, and they're all cheery about it. Boy, them Road Warriors, they're going to do whatever they have to do to win.
Little did they know.
Little did they know. So
I do love Stan Lane doing karate. It's always
Stan Lane
amazing.
doing karate is great. Curtis Thompson, as you noted, is jacked, and so Stan put his handshake over. He shook hands, and Stan drops to his knees.
Cruel Connection 1 is absolutely horrific. He has a full body green spandex suit, white boots, and piss yellow trunks.
Fact.
And he's fat. I mean, the worst. Wretched.
It's all true.
I'm not lying about one thing that I just said right there.
No. So Cornette runs down every team in the roster. The Road Warriors, the Sheep Herders, the Fantastics, the Varsity Club. Midnight's win with the Double Goozle, and they go to a promo where they continue to run down teams. They beat the Horsemen, who beat a hasty retreat. Rick Steiner won a letter in football. They had to read it to him. High school was the best 9 years of Mike Rotunda's life. They call it Dusty and any partner he can find. JJ Dillon wants to challenge me. He's gonna get a lawn chair for his old age, which began in 1957. The best part of all this, Jim Cornette says, is Mama's proud of me. And then we get, no joke, 20 seconds of Jim Cornette forcibly kissing David Crockett.
He attacked him.
He did.
And quite frankly, he raped him.
He molested him.
David Crockett wanted no part of this.
He groped him.
Yes. Yeah. This is all bad.
That all happened.
You're not allowed to do this.
Yeah, it's a crime.
Yes. That was a crime. Now, the promo, Cornette was absolutely incredible, but he did not need to rant as long as he did. It's like a Luger promo, but like a million times better. He was done, but then he just had to keep going.
Dude, we then got a Luger promo.
I left.
This Luger promo was unlike the Jim Cornette promo in any way.
I left and came back and thought that you'd turn the volume down.
I may have been asleep. I'm not sure.
He is quietly mumbling through this promo.
The worst thing about this is he and Flair have been feuding for like
The worst thing? This I got to hear.
He and Ric Flair have been feuding for like 6 months now. It's the same old shit. And I'm bored with it. Most fans are bored with it. And worse is, it's clear Luger's bored with it. He has said all this 8 billion times. You got all the big houses. You got all the big women. You're the best. You're the champion. And I completely zoned out. The only thing of note is he was talking about Cornette and how the Midnights have shown the Four Horsemen are vulnerable. There's a crack in their invincibility. That was the only new material, but all it did was remind me how great the Cornette promo was.
Yeah, this should not have followed Jim Cornette. I don't know what
this should not have been on TV. I think it was live. I mean, it was live. I don't know, but this sucked. This was very, very bad and made me uninterested in watching Lex Luger wrestle Ric Flair or anyone else. Fantastics versus Mike Justice and Joe Griffin.
Okay, so they did this spot. I'm not sure which geek it was with, okay? But I watched it
the tall guy with a mullet.
I watched it a few times because I just had to see, did I really see what I think I just saw? So the whole key to all of this is, when I watched it the first time, let's just presume that the guy was Mike Justice, because he's a big guy with a mullet. Justice, you know what I'm saying? He looked like the guy who should be Mike Justice.
Right.
Okay. So Mike Justice is there, and he's like totally confused with what he's supposed to be doing. And so the first time I watched it, I thought, this is all his fault. This guy fucking sucks, okay? Then I watched it again, and I was like, it's not his fault.
No.
He doesn't know what's going on because I don't know what's going on. Their idea was they were going to grab him. For some reason, this involved spinning him in a full circle near the ropes. I don't know why. I'm still trying to figure out why he had to go in a full circle first. They do an arm wringer. One of them is holding his wrist like a normal arm wringer, and the other guy on the apron does a flip senton into the ring onto his arm.
That's the idea.
And they all fall down. Okay? I have never seen a move that looked more like a total fuck up, but was in fact exactly what they wanted to do. That was their plan.
I believe it was.
I know it was. What else could this possibly have been?
I have no other solution to that. I don't think
because they went right back to work on his arm.
I don't think they were trying it head scissors and missed.
No, they went right back to work on his arm and shoulder after attacking his arm and shoulder with his preposterous move. This was planned by the Fantastics. Keep in mind, this match was 2 minutes long, so they had to get this move in there for some reason. I can't imagine they ever did it again. This is a must-see.
I'm sure it sounded good on paper.
No! When I describe it, there are people out there trying to imagine it going, why in the fuck would they do that? This did not look good on paper. It was a stupid idea. It came off stupid, and I hope they realized it.
They won with a rocket launcher. The Fantastics did. Nikita Koloff versus Eddie Sweat.
I don't know if it's his real name, but like, if it wasn't, this guy thought a great idea for a name would be Eddie Sweat.
Eddie Sweat.
He was so horrible.
He's
up there.
I mean,
he is way up there.
The standards for horrible wrestling have been dug deep by Don Valentine, but Eddie Sweat was for sure the worst wrestler of all time of this week.
Yes.
No doubt about that.
And worse, Koloff just kept giving him spots.
He tried to work with him.
Why?
It
had to be a rib.
You can't work with someone this bad. You just grab them and manhandle them and beat them and win.
It had to be Koloff thinking, I'm going to have a really bad match. I'm going to give this guy a lot of stuff for my own amusement, and then I'm going to kill him.
So Eddie Sweat's headlock is horrible. He sucks doing a headlock.
He can't run.
He sucks going into the ropes, and he sucks coming off the ropes.
Can't bump.
My favorite part is Eddie Sweat, because Nikita's giving him everything, Eddie Sweat gives him an arm wringer. He twists the arm. And then you can see him as I'm going to use some insider lingo. He gives Nikita the office. He squeezes the wrist. And Nikita, being like a star, he like stands up and his eyes are bugging out. He's going to do something. But Eddie Sweat panics because he gave Nikita the office and Nikita didn't immediately reverse it.
Because he sucks.
Because he starts squeezing the wrist again and yanking in the arm like, switch something. So Nikita punches him in the face. Wins with the sickle. This was bad wrestling. Then we got a bad promo. So David says, we all saw when Nikita Koloff saved Nikita Koloff. He asks Nikita about the time he saved himself. First, Nikita says, I want to talk about Lex Luger and Ric Flair. I have wrestled Lex Luger, and I have wrestled Ric Flair.
What a kiss ass.
I believe Lex Luger has a very good chance to become world champion.
Thank you, Nikita. Tell me about Ric Flair and Lex Luger. Who do you think has a good chance of winning that match, Nikita?
I have never wrestled Sting, he says. But he's got a lot of talent.
Oh, Sting. That's where we're at.
He's got a very good chance to become USA champion.
Yes.
I have wrestled Barry Windham. I don't know what's going through his head, but he is a good champion too. He's just dodging this question left and right. Finally, he says, Uncle Ivan has much pride, and he is a good man. I am new breed of Russian.
He says he's from the old country, the old school.
Ivan is from the old country.
I am from the new Russia.
For me, there is no law, he says. When Uncle Ivan say he stand alone, and nobody needs to help him, I believe him.
Yes. He said, I believe him.
Yes.
He did not say, when Uncle Ivan says he stands alone, he doesn't stand alone, because I'll be standing right next to him. He didn't say that.
No.
He said, this guy says he's standing alone. I believe him. So what they're doing is they're avoiding the obvious. It's like, this is the way it should be, but I watch so much of this fucking WWE main roster that it's like, I'm just baffled when people do it right. Like on Raw or on Nitro, because of these fucking shows we watch where we never know what's going on. Like, the show would have just started with Nikita and Ivan together as a team.
Right.
And, like, you know, Nikita saved him on Thunder, and now they're a team on Nitro.
Right.
Or, you know, the same things, you know, something would happen on SmackDown, and they're a team again on Raw. The key is, Nikita saved his uncle, but neither of them are willing to, like, be the other's partner right now. They're still very wary because of what has happened in the past.
It is, you're right, but the other great thing about it is advancing one chapter every week. Something happens. They hated each other for years. Then Paul Jones and his men turned on Ivan. They asked Nikita about it. He just didn't want to talk about it. A week goes by. Ivan's still having trouble with Paul Jones. Now Nikita will talk about it, but he won't really. He's like wishy-washy. And Ivan is speaking for himself.
He says the same thing.
I've done a lot of very bad things. I'm not going to apologize for them, but I basically says I know why everyone hates me.
Well, sure, but I mean, this week he does the exact same promo as Nikita, which is, I'm doing this alone.
Yes. So the third week is when Nikita finally comes out and he does save him from a beating, but that doesn't mean everything's over yet. They're still gradually approaching being on the same page. There's still a lot to work through here.
Yes. We have Straight Talk with Magnum TA and Ivan.
Straight Talk with the Boss is Magnum TA's interview segment.
I actually thought that this was done in a studio with a live event backdrop, but then they did a bunch of zooming, and I believe this actually was live at a building.
I believe this was in a live...
It was really weird.
Yeah.
But Ivan did another great promo, not as good as the one he did a couple of weeks ago, but it was the same deal. He literally says exactly what Nikita says. I'm old school. I'm an old school Russian. Nikita's from the new Russia. I brought him here. Now he's become the greatest athlete ever.
The greatest athlete ever.
Like, you were doing pretty well, but this is horseshit. He says, Magnum wants an answer.
Yes.
And Magnum's a great interviewer. Like, Ivan will be rambling, and Magnum will try and get him back on track. Ivan will ramble about something else. Magnum will get him back on track. Magnum finally goes, dude, there's 2 Russian assassins here. You have to think about that. Ivan goes, I've done many things wrong, but I don't make excuses. I'm going after them. And I'll fight my own fight.
I will fight my own battles.
I was like, fuck, this is so great. You're just begging for these guys to team up. You can't wait till they team up to take out these Russians.
All the Russians.
All these Russians.
Yeah.
Well, they're still taking out Russians.
These,
They are Russians.
These two Russians are going to take out those other Russians.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wonder if the Russian assassins are old or new school. We don't know.
We don't know.
I presume new.
Ivan brought them in, though.
Yes.
And Ivan's from the old school. Maybe he found some other old school Russians.
Could be. Or he knew old school Russians. He brought in their kids.
That's true, too.
Because his new school Russian Nikita became the greatest athlete ever. So it would make more sense to bring in two youngsters. I can't believe how much we talked about that.
We are professionals. Dr. Death and Brad Armstrong versus Terry Jones and Keith Steinborn.
Terry Jones wasn't like terrible, but he had the worst look, and we've seen some bad, awful looks. He has the hair of a 60-year-old woman. It's like a gray page boy.
Yeah.
And he's got this fucking horrible 70s porn stash to go with it.
Yes.
So then you're just baffled. And these baby blue long tights.
Yeah. At first, I thought he was wearing faded jeans,
No.
which actually would have been better.
No. They would not have.
And his body is all lumpy.
But skinny lumpy.
Skinny lump. Yeah. This is a terrible look. Everything about it. The only thing of note in the actual match, Dr. Death did something. Neither of us are sure what it was. My best guess is it was like a fame asser, but Terry Jones was standing up at the time, or even running.
Oh. I still don't know what it was, but it was imagine this, everybody. A uranage into an armbar, but neither the uranage or the armbar look good. That's what happened.
I think we're talking about different things.
No.
Because I thought one where Steve jumped at him.
He did. He leaped for a uranage, but then they both fell down, and he ended up kind of in an armbar position, but not.
I need to go watch this again.
Yeah, I'm positive.
Because I saw him grab the man with his leg somehow.
Yeah, he went for a uranage. He jumped up and he kicked with one leg, but then kind of grabbed him to fall into an armbar position, but it looked horrible. Nothing about it looked good.
Well, I agree it looked horrible.
Yes.
Here I concur. Ric Flair comes out for a promo. First thing he says is, I heard Lex Luger out here earlier, and I thought, oh boy, he's pissed. He's pissed that Luger cut a shitty promo for their program. Says, I got houses all over the country. I got cars. I got women. You forgot to mention my big yacht. I like women.
He's mad.
I like women. Women like my yacht. Then he just loses his damn mind. He says, this is a quote. You want to see me naked? It cost you $20 ringside around the world. What?
I guess his pants pulled down all the time.
I've seen a lot of Ric Flair. I guess that's it. Maybe he does that every single night.
I bet he did back then.
Maybe he did. I hadn't thought of that. You want to see me in a Rolex and a big pinky ring, he says.
Do you remember when I used to work for Tim? I'll never forget this. This made me so mad at the time. I would do these matches, and I would do the sunset flip spot in every single match, where the guy goes for the sunset flip, I reach for the ropes. He pulls my trunks down a little bit, bare ass, I fall into the sunset flip, kick out. How many shows did I do that on?
I hope the stunts aren't listening.
I did that like 100 shows in a row. And finally one day, and this is what is most infuriating about it, we ran a show on a college campus. I did this fucking spot, and Tim blew his fucking stack.
Yep.
And he chewed me out, and he screamed at me, and I was like, fucker, I do this on every show. Every show. At fucking county fairs. I'm not showing my whole ass, but like you pull it down, there's a little bit of an ass crack, everyone goes, ah ha ha ha. I do this on every goddamn show. The one fucking show we do on a college fucking campus where nobody under the age of 18 is even basically allowed at the show. That's the one where you flip your lid about the bare ass spot. Are you kidding me? That still pisses me off to this day. Tim, if you're listening, I apologize, but goddamn, that made me mad. Anyway.
Then Flair is sure to mention, we wear alligator shoes. He holds up his alligator shoes. We drive Mercedes-Benzes. We are all millionaires. All of us. What a novel concept, I thought.
Yeah.
He's the best of the best, but they're all the best.
Not only that, they're not only millionaires, but he cuts his promo about how they're also special.
Yes.
Because they're the best athletes in all of pro sports.
That's what he said.
The football players, none of them look like Ric Flair.
Fact.
The baseball players, he says, a dime a dozen. But great wrestlers, he says, there's a handful, and there is only one world champion. We're not on teams. It's one man who's the best, and that's me. So when it's over, you're like, these wrestlers are very, very special people.
Yeah.
They're millionaires. They're fucking famous. And they're like at the top of the sports mountain. You watch Raw, it's a bunch of geeks that want to, they want out. But they're afraid because, like, if they yell at the boss, they'll be unemployed, and unemployable, it's just the even bigger thing, and in poverty.
Yeah. Things change.
They don't change. One company changed. Fucking Okada's the Rainmaker.
That's a good
He's a young rich guy because he's the fucking champion.
Right.
Well, not because he's the champion. Well, I mean, now it's because he's the champion.
Been championed a lot.
Sure.
Mike Rotunda and Rick Steiner and Kevin Sullivan versus Randy Mulkey and Bruce Hollis and Gary Royal. First thing to do is a backdrop where the Mulkey goes flying high in the air, lands on his ass, just about dies.
Where's the other Mulkey? Is he dead? Or is he out touring?
Maybe the other Mulkey and the other Cruel Connection have formed a unit somewhere.
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, maybe
They're at some house show somewhere.
they've jumped ship. They're world class now.
Cruel Connection 2 and was the other idiot Mulkey?
Was it Bill?
Randy Mulkey and
Randy was here. I think it was Bill.
Continue.
Okay.
Mulkey's was apparently too vague for Google. I can't imagine.
So Steiner here is completely fucking around.
Bill and Randy.
It was Bill.
Yeah.
Steiner's got he still has this Florida title for some reason. He's wearing it backwards. He's wearing it during the match. He comes in without a tag. He fucks up what Rotunda's doing, so Rotunda's pissed. Rotunda yells at the referee, keep him out of the ring. The referee's like, you keep him out of the ring. He's your partner. So eventually Steiner tags in, destroys people for a while, goes for the cover with a belly-to-belly.
Oh, God. Go ahead. I just read the rudest thing ever.
He goes for a cover with a belly-to-belly, but they insist that he not meet the cover. He tagged Rotunda in. Rotunda comes in, hits a sweet double arm suplex, and wins.
So Online World of Wrestling, the Mulkey entry. Steve Hafner here says, do you have the resources to find out if Bill and Randy Mulkey is their real names? And if so, if they are related to Baylor women's basketball coach Kim Mulkey? I looked at her photo and she looks like a Mulkey. Wow.
Huh. Yeah, that I didn't know where you're going with that, and when you got there, it caught me totally off guard. I did not even expect to say she looks.
As I was reading it the second time to you, I was afraid that it was going to turn out that Kim was actually a guy, and so he might look like a Mulkey. But then it is in fact a her.
Does she look like a Mulkey?
I'm going to Google it and find out. I mean, the answer that I'm going to say is no.
Did her basketball team ever win games? Because if so, then she's not a Mulkey.
Let's see here, Kim Mulkey. Okay, like not even just being a nice guy, but she doesn't look like a Mulkey. She's just blonde.
So all blonde people are now descendants of the Mulkeys?
It looks like she wore jeans here.
Every blonde person anywhere is a descendant of the Mulkey in one way or another.
Yeah.
Al Perez versus Max MacGyver. They hit Max with a chain. Al went to the toe hold, and they all joined Gary Hart for a promo. So the key here is they've been doing dog collar matches with Al versus Dusty Rhodes or Kevin Sullivan versus Dusty Rhodes, probably both at some point.
Kim Mulkey, 3-time NCAA Division I tournament head coach. Same with 10-time Big 12 regular season, 10-time Big 12 tournament, 2-time AP College Basketball Coach of the Year. No way she's a Mulkey.
No. So they've been in these dog collar matches. But now the dog collar is going to have a padlock on it, so it will not fall off. And all that means to these guys is when Kevin Sullivan, with his power, or when Al Perez, a conditioned athlete, when they throw Dusty Rhodes over the top rope and then try to pull him back in by the neck, there will be no way for that collar to fall off. No one will be able to save you.
Dude, she's a fucking Olympian. She's not a mulkey. Olympic gold medalist in fucking basketball. Pan American gold medalist.
Not a mulkey.
No. I mean, she is a mulkey. They're not mulkeys. That's what I think I'm getting at.
Yes. Different mulkeys.
Yes.
Totally different mulkeys.
Yes.
Then Gary Hart asks, who's going to have the key? Who's the keeper of the key for that padlock? Some referee? Someone could really get hurt now, he says. Russian Assassin number 1 and Russian Assassin number 2 versus...
And number 3, which is their music.
It's number... That is number 1, actually. That music is number 1. Versus Italian Stallion and Max Miles. My notes read, in their entirety, Assassins win with loaded headbutt.
Yeah, and they had Jim Ross flat out say, these guys were killing that dude. No reason to load that mask.
Yes.
So they get it all on camera. The announcers are pointing out that we have this on camera, like it's confirmed. So they go back and Paul Jones is being interviewed by David, and the first thing David says is, hand it over.
All right, Paul, hand it over. He puts his hand out.
Gimmick.
Yeah.
Paul's like, fuck you. This man has the hardest head in wrestling. He starts whacking the assassin in the head with his hand.
You're not doing this justice.
Hold on. He's whacking him in the head with his hand, and then he goes, that hurt my hand. Because his head's so hard.
Yes. Okay, that was great. That was great. But you're not. This whole thing needs to be gone over in detail. Crockett says, all right, Paul, hand it over. He's furious. There's been chicanery going on in wrestling in front of him. And Jones looks at his hand and shakes it. This makes David Crockett even more mad. What did that man put in his mask? Now Jones is furious that he's been accused of something. Nothing! This man has the hardest head in professional wrestling. They do that spot with the head. They talk about Ivan, and Paul Jones says, there's a lot of good men around, but Ivan Koloff is a gutless good man. And there's a lot of gutless good men around. And then David Crockett takes the mic back and says, okay, we gotta go. We'll be back next week.
He just cut this fucking guy off, and he says, we'll see you next week. And as the music is playing, Paul Jones looks at him and says, you won't see Ivan Koloff next week.
It was awesome.
That's how the show ended.
That was fantastic.
Paul Jones is the best.
Yes.
Who could hate Paul Jones?
Don't know.
He's so great. And even when he sucks, he's funny. So it's like the best of all worlds. That was NWA, everybody.